Lost aircraft is an F-18 at the 90. Stand clear to port catwalk and fire line. Stand by to recover aircraft. This is a drill.
Good evening, everybody. This is Caesar with the Battle Rhythm Podcast here live, brought to you live by or through Voice of the People, U.S.A. Radio and TV and Television Network, also through UC Digital and also through Patriot Radio. And I want to also thank some of my sponsors this week, actually throughout the show. So thank you to Texoma Harley Davidson for being such a great sponsor with us. Also through the American Legion Riders, Post 231, MIA Post out in Lake Texoma. And also, let's not forget EGA Construction Services out of the DFW area and Scott's Construction out of the Alabama area. So with that said, I can't forget. I cannot not forget my favorite place to go hang out, the Black Sheep Lounge in Denison, Texas. It is my favorite place to go smoke a cigar. If you like that type of atmosphere, it is one of the best places to go to. They have great crafted cocktails. If you go in there and you ask for an old fashioned with the cherry smoke, oh my gosh, you pair it up with a really good smoke. Just go talk to my friends out there, Nick and Ashlyn, and Bridget will be able to help you out there. And like I said, you will not be disappointed. It's a great atmosphere, and also you're going out there and having a good time, and just the atmosphere really is what it is. So today, July 29th of the year of our Lord of 2025, I am here. I am going to be joined by such a great person today. I have been, okay, some people say stalking. I'm going to say I've been following the content of this person because it has been just such great content. It just made me laugh the entire time I was listening to it. So I actually, this week, for my interview of the week, I actually have a former JAG officer from the U.S. Army. So she's a retired lieutenant colonel, and her name is Jocelyn Stewart, and she's a retired lieutenant colonel from the Army, and she's prosecuted and defended cases in uniform from 2004 to 2011 or 12, and then she started a private practice law firm, which dedicated herself to defending active duty and helping veterans as well. She has published 4 books so far in trial practice series known as Shaping the Battlefield, and 1 book about her top 12 career cases called It Has Been My Honor. She's known on the social media as the Messy Military Lawyer, which you probably have heard her on TikTok or Facebook and things like that. So, but she most recently she produced a 5-part course series on helping veterans upgrade their military discharge. So we're going to be talking to her about that today. And just putting it out there right now as a potential warning, a disclaimer. Okay, I need you guys to really pay attention to this. So if you guys do call in or you guys have questions through our socials, please post those through. But I need to give you this disclaimer. So her appearance today is not to give any one individual personal legal advice, but please do not share any personal details about your own former or current military legal issues. If she answers any of your questions, you have not formed an attorney-client relationship. This is just a public forum, so nothing is deemed confidential. She can and will answer any question to provide general information and educational and comedic levity purposes only. So there's my disclaimer. That's her disclaimer as well. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that this is going to be really good because, like I said, there's a lot of misconceptions about the UCMJ, and after you become a veteran, and how long are you still under the UCMJ? So she's going to answer those questions for us. But first and foremost, I want you guys to give her a huge Battle Rhythm Podcast welcome, and like I always do, to my interview of the week.
The Battle Rhythm Podcast interview is brought to you by Texoma Harley Davidson. Stop by the street for all of your Harley Davidson needs.
right, our interview of the week is brought to you by Texoma Harley Davidson, and today I have Miss Jocelyn Stewart. How are you, ma'am?
I'm doing so great, Caesar. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. I'm sorry I'm yelling a lot. I'm really excited about this show. I've been excited all week.
I'm excited too. It's not often that I get to be the guest, so thank you for having me.
Well, you know what? I don't understand why you have you. I think you bring an array of a lot of different topics that you could definitely cover. Because again, like I mentioned on the intro, is that a lot of people have a misconception about how things are after you get out of uniform. People still say, "Oh, am I still under the UCMJ? I mean, I still have a clearance. I still have this. Am I still under this?" So we're going to talk about that here in a minute. But first of all, welcome. So thank you for being here and making the time. And I know I can still see the sunlight out there where you're at. Right now, we're almost in the cover of darkness. So later on we're going to be playing a different song, "Hello Darkness, My Old Friend" type of thing. So we'll see how that goes. But I always start my show with actually giving you I'm not schooling you. Please don't take this as like I'm schooling you, but I always give informational things about the day. So I usually start the day off, and I like to have my guests so they can actually, whether or not they knew about this or not. So I'm going to actually start with today. Did you know that today is National Lipstick Day?
I didn't, but I'm so glad that I'm wearing some. Where's yours?
Well, I am wearing it's called nude. Yes.
Oh.
That's what it is.
Let's let that be the only thing that's nude. Okay.
Well, you know what? Well, this reminds me of Calvin and Hobbes. When we were growing up, Calvin and Hobbes is like, what are you doing? I'm walking down the staircase. I'm in the buff. And that just reminds me of that. I don't know why. Yes, so that is today. Today is National Lipstick Day. Today, did you also know that today is National Chicken Wing Day?
I didn't, but now you're going to give me a craving. I'm highly suggestible. So,
well, you know what? You're welcome. Buffalo Wild Wings is usually my go-to. They're not, by the way, they're not sponsoring us yet. So I'm working on it by now. I told them, hey, I gave you guys a shout out. I should get us some wings. So, but also there's another piece of food as well, because today is also National Lasagna Day.
So, I do not remember last time I had lasagna. I have celiac, so I don't get to have.
Okay, so do you have a preference as far as like what your favorite food is?
I don't, because I have a really weird relationship with food. It's just fuel for me now. Like I had to say goodbye to all the yummy things that have gluten in them. I didn't even get a real chance to say goodbye. I tell my kids at the end of my life, when I've had a really full life, bring me all of it. Donuts, macaroni and cheese, you're going to find me dead in a vat of pasta.
Yeah. At some point you actually have to give up the okay. So a lot of us soldiers, we ran on cigarettes and nicotine. I only did one of the two, cigarettes, nicotine, and what's the other one?
Caffeine, coffee?
Caffeine. Thank you. Like, Red Bulls or Monsters, depending on, the preference, because some people like the Monsters, some people like the Red Bulls. So I did neither of any. I didn't do any of those. So,
nor me. Yeah, and I still don't have caffeine. Everybody said at each phase of life. Yeah, oh, when you get to college, you're gonna have coffee. When you get to law school, when you get on active duty, when you have kids, nope, no caffeine. No caffeine.
Did you not do it in college either? Like when you were writing papers like 2 a.m, like, oh my gosh, it's due at 6.
Apparently, I'm just high on life. My brain operates at high octane, so no caffeine here.
Then you have an ADHD.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Neurodivergent. All of it.
All right. So some notable birthdays for July 29th. Let me see if you actually knew of any of these. So I always love doing these because people are like, I did not know that. It's like, yeah. Okay, so Walter Hunt was born in 1796 and passed away in 1859. He was the inventor of the safety pin and the sewing machine. I did not. I thought it was Singer, but I could be wrong. I was wrong. I was completely wrong. Dovey Hudson, 1914 to 1994, was an American civil rights activist who filed the first lawsuit to desegregate public schools. Did you know about that?
I didn't, but I mean, I know about the famous cases, in
Right.
Alabama, but no, I didn't know he filed. Good for him.
first one. I don't know. It doesn't say the year was, but it is what it is. All right. William Dement, 1928 to 2020. He was a researcher known as the father of sleep medicine. So he's the one that actually gave me my CPAP. Thanks. I didn't know that. Did you? I'm sure you know this name, and it's still actually they're still living. Charles Schwab.
I know the name. I recognize the name. Is that the investment company?
Yes. He was born 1937. He was the founder of the Charles Schwab Corporation. So yes, it's the one. Are you into fashion at all? Like, watch I don't know, America's Top Model or like Project Runway or anything of that nature?
I remember watching America's Top Model kind of when it was the new thing, when Tyra Banks was still young. Not something I really follow. I do.
Right.
I maybe have an affiliate,
Yeah.
I have an affinity for Louis Vuitton.
Okay. which woman now doesn't? You know what I mean? Like,
I know. I may or may not have my own personal Louis Vuitton shopper at Harrods of London. Maybe.
Wow.
Guilty pleasure. Yeah. Guilty pleasure.
May or may not. I like that. May or may not. All right. Cool. Yeah, so the reason I mentioned it is because Tim Gunn, he actually was born 1953. He is a fashion educator and host of Project Runway. That's why.
I've never seen it. Maybe, yeah.
Well,
I'm always watching some trash TV, but I haven't seen that one.
We'll see. Okay, so you're right. It's trash TV, but I kind of, it's weird because I start watching some of these things. Like, at some point I was hooked on the Housewives of Orange County. And I'll tell you why, because my niece actually used to work for at some point there was in that show there was a lady by the name of Kelly, and Kelly used to live above them in Huntington Beach, and so so we got to meet her all the time. Like they got to meet my daughter and everything, and it was just funny. Like she was really cool. I think she's married to the guy now that invented the leapfrog system, like Yeah, that's what she's married to. And then my niece used to work for her. She used to do her hair for the show, like her makeup and all that stuff. So it was pretty cool. So we got to meet her, got to hung out with her a couple times, and it was fun. Let's see who else. Martina McBride. Are you familiar with Martina McBride?
I definitely know who she is, and I could probably recognize her voice if she sang a song, but I can't think of it now.
I can't. I'm not singing that high, so I'm sorry. I don't know any Martina McBride anyway. So, which is fine. 1966, and she's still alive. She's still with us, and she's a powerhouse country music vocalist. All right, let's test your history. Are you ready?
I will do my best.
All right, here we go. I'm sure some of these you're gonna know. I'm just telling you. Especially
my knowledge of history is abysmal. I have a lot of things that I know, and I do not know history.
Well, you came to the right place because, like I said, I am going to not school you, but I'm going to educate you on some of this stuff, and especially because there's also some military history in here as well. So, yeah. All right. In 1835, the first sugar plantation in Hawaii is established, and Did you ever go to Hawaii?
Yes. I ran the Honolulu Marathon the morning that we caught Saddam Hussein.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
The energy was unreal. They announced it at the beginning, and obviously a lot of service members were there in Honolulu, and it was just really cool.
Schofield, right? Schofield Barracks?
Yep, very close. It was December 6th, 2003.
Yeah. That's crazy. It seems like such a long time ago, It
does.
All right, 1928. Walt Disney runs the test footage for a short called, and it was featuring Mickey Mouse. Do you know the name of that? Do you know the name of that short?
I don't. I feel like there was a steam engine happening.
It was Steamboat Willie.
Steamboat Willie. I was close.
Yes, very close. I mean, you had the right idea, so I'm going to give you half a point for that. You're fine. All right, 1957, Tonight, starring Jack Parr, premiered on NBC and marked the beginning of the modern day era talk show. And I thought it was Johnny Carson who actually started that, but it was way before that.
Sure.
Well, that would be the Tonight Show, but it is what it is. And we're not going to talk about The View. So,
I think they just canceled Colbert, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. They budget cuts. That's what they called it.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then also the View went on hiatus. So
did it?
Yeah, they put that View on hiatus. And there's a couple other shows that are actually going, and it's crazy because it seems like now, like, you know, what we do, because I know you have your own podcast and, you know, things of that nature. Like there's 4 podcasts that they are actually calling like not political, but they're actually calling like it must go to for them for people to actually be like, you know, they're running. And actually Gavin Newsom is actually going through those right now.
Oh wow!
Because he's running for president. Gavin Newsom is the governor of California. So he went on the Sean Ryan show, he's also a former CIA. Also, I believe he's a Ranger, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. He might have been a SEAL though. But either way, and then the Joe Rogan show, is another one. And I mean, he gets huge numbers. I mean, I wish I had those numbers.
Don't we all?
Yeah, right. And then the other one is Tucker Carlson, because you know he has his own shows now. I mean, sorry, his own network. So TCN, Tucker Carlson network, and then I want to say that it's Candace Owens. For whatever reason, I think she might be considered one of them. And we're going to talk about her a little bit because I find it very interesting, and I just want to get your perspective from a lawyer and see what you think about this. So it's gonna be interesting.
I have to confess, and this surprises a lot of people. I don't keep up a lot with current events, and like maybe like the 100th time I'll get tagged in something. So you'll have to give me a snippet. It's probably something I've heard of, but
no, it is.
Don't come at me.
No, I'm not coming at you. I mean, first of all, you're too far, and second of all, I'm not gonna disrespect my guests in any way, because that's not the way it is. I mean, how do I'm not here for the ratings. I'm here for the conversation. Really, that's all it is. It's really a conversation, you know. And somebody doesn't know something about it, I'm not gonna keep pressing. It's like, so in 1965, this happened. Like Miranda rights were violated. Okay, shut up. It doesn't matter. Everybody's rights gets violated at some point in their life, and it is what it is. But yeah, I know. Get off the soapbox here. All right. In 1958, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, otherwise known as, or better known as NASA, is created after President Eisenhower signed the National Aeronautics and Space Act into law. All right. Here is your military question, or education, I guess. In 1965, the first 4,000 paratroopers from the 101st Airborne Division arrive in where? Remember 1965?
I don't know.
Vietnam.
Okay. I mean, that was a guess. That was a thought, but I don't want to be wrong.
No, that's fine. Again, you know, I didn't even know that it was that many. Actually, I thought it was a lot more, but you know,
yeah, it's not a whole
I was
lot.
wrong. 1975, President Ford becomes the first president to visit the Nazi concentration camp of Auschwitz. Wow.
I've been there.
I did not get to go there when I was in Frankfurt, but that is on my bucket list, unfortunately. Well, I don't want to say unfortunately, but I think it'll be very moving. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it's. Have you ever been to the National Holocaust Museum in Washington?
I have not yet been there. I've been past it. I did not have a chance to go in.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story about that. I've been there twice, and I'll tell you a story about that in a little while, because it's pretty interesting. In 1983, okay, first of all, let me ask you this. Did you know that, us growing up and as Gen Xers, you pretty much like grew up watching MTV, right? And you knew that was like the music television. And
I wasn't allowed to. So I wasn't allowed. I lived in a pretty sheltered household. I had a brother who was almost 7 years older, and he would get to watch it. And so there was a view of our family living room TV from the top of the stairs. So I may or may not have, see that again, sat at the top of the stairs and tried to like soak some of it in through my older brother. But my brother was at the concert. This is a recent event where Ozzy Osbourne bit the rat.
What?
It happened in my hometown, Lafayette, Louisiana, when he got banned like by everybody, right? And he just passed away, Ozzy. But yeah, my brother was at that concert, so I was the one they wanted to keep sheltered, and he's out like
That's
in the
crazy.
middle of all of it.
That is so crazy. That's I would have never, it's a small world for that.
Small world.
But my point is that we grew up. Well, at least I grew up watching MTV and the music videos and everything. And after a certain time, like I think 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock, used to come the show called Headbangers Ball.
Oh,
right?
my brother watched it religiously.
Right?
Absolutely.
Right. That was probably one of the best shows that they had,
Sure.
And then Yo MTV Raps was after that. But I really liked Headbangers Ball. Well, anyway, during that time in 1983, the late night music videos premiered on NBC. I didn't know that. I thought it was just MTV that did that.
Same. Yeah, I didn't have any idea about that.
Yeah.
My kids had never heard of MTV. I was like, oh,
well, no, because all they get to see in MTV now is just all this trash. I'm sorry. Like somehow somewhere in the early 2000s, they started doing The Real World, right? And then they started doing like the Teen Moms, all this stuff, and all of a sudden, just all it became was just reality TV. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. I was just like, I don't know. It was just dumb. I don't understand why I did that. But yeah, it was just crazy. It was just crazy. Anyway, so that's the today and the day of July 29th, and I hope you learned something today.
I did. Thank you.
All right. Well, like I said, my guest today is actually a former JAG officer. However, she still practices law under on an alias name, not alias, but I guess she is better known as the UCMJ Defender, right? And that's your website right there, ucmjdefender.com. And first of all, what made you decide to keep trying these or keep that same career field? You know what I mean? Because it's you obviously you did it full time in the military, but what made you decide to actually keep it on the civilian side?
Well, it wasn't always the plan, but I pivoted pretty quickly. So, the climate that I was operating in, I had been selected and was one of 15 Army Special Victim Prosecutors, which was sort of our response to growing concerns that there was a climate of tolerance of sexual assault in the military. Not like while we were already geared up and doing our thing, The Invisible War came out, right? The documentary that really helped people come to this belief. Mm-hmm. And I watched all the money being funneled into prosecutions. And it concerned me for sure. I had been, I defended for 3 years in uniform before I became a special victim prosecutor. And that was after I'd already prosecuted for a couple of years as a captain. So I called up a guy who I'd tried a case against. It was actually the first life without parole sentence in a non-homicide case.
Really?
I put a guy, talk about, that was awkward. I was like 2 in the morning.
A little bit
2 in the morning, we get the sentence back, and like I've signed the order, putting him away, and I'm like creeping out to my car. I'm TDY to Fort Riley, and I'm trying to get back to my hotel. And there he comes. He's out like with his chains, and like he's like got his handcuffs and his chains, and he sees me, and I'm like, oh God. And he's like, ma'am, I can't say it's been real fun, but it's definitely been real. And I was like, oh. And then they took him away. But so I saw what was happening, and I saw all the amendments that were being made. And so I called the guy who had represented him. He's a very successful civilian practitioner. And I said, hey, buddy, thanks for taking my call. And I just said, hey, like if I hang a shingle, like if I just try to do this, am I going to starve? Like, is there enough business out here for people? And he said, there is, and have I got a deal for you? And he made me an offer to become of counsel to his firm. And so I did that. That was like my easier stepping stone, because I got case leads from him for about a year. And then was, building my my name and building my website, and then a year later, launched just on my own. So
Right. So you basically made you an offer you couldn't refuse.
Well, it was a very helpful offer. I mean, and so I had started putting out like applications, mostly a lot of JAGs when they get out, they put out feelers for United States attorneys' jobs, right? Federal
Right.
prosecutors. One of my mentors from active duty was like, Jocelyn, you don't want to do that. I'm like, why? He said, you will not, he said, you might get to try 1, maybe 2 cases a year. I'm like, you're joking. He said, yeah, they just don't have the tempo. They don't have the tempo. I mean, when I was at Hood, I was trying a case every week or every other week. Like
really?
It was, I tried more cases as a captain than anybody else in uniform. Like I was litigating AWOL cases, drug cases, urinalysis cases. Like the government made crappy offers, and sorry about that. We were just taking it to trial. It was really important that people knew that, we could litigate cases that helped inspire the other people in the offices. I'm like, we have the ability to shut these guys down. Like, stop taking their horrible pretrial agreements. So that, and then I started getting offers. Like I started getting interest, but they were in locations that I didn't want to raise a family.
Right.
New Jersey, New York. It just wasn't, it didn't appeal to me. And I said, why am I going to go do something? Because that's what's sort of expected of me. And that's sort of like the easier route, right? Like the 1st and the 15th, the comfort of a government job versus being able to strike out on your own and being an entrepreneur, which really honestly suited me. I don't work well for others. So
yeah,
it was important for me to be able to be independent.
Okay. So how hard was it to transition from the military life to the civilian life? Because I mean, obviously, you had, there has to be some type of adjustment period, right?
Definitely.
Like anything, right? But like you said, it was a tempo completely different when this happened. I mean, you went from, like you said, trying so many cases, and now the tempo is like, okay, what is going on here?
Yeah, I think the biggest change was that I went from the camaraderie of an office where you can have water cooler talk or pull a colleague aside, BS, tell your stories to, have them received by, to then being in a home office of silence, right? And really like not having a peer group. It was a lot of me and a lot of YouTube videos trying to figure out business and leads and marketing and how I was going to make this work. So absolutely, there was definitely a period of adjustment because I really hadn't planned to get out. I really saw myself as somebody who would stay in for 30. It didn't occur to me to get out, and then it happened kind of quickly. Very glad that I made that call, but it was definitely an adjustment for sure.
That, I don't think anybody really thinks about doing the 30 because I mean, maybe it crossed my mind once. Obviously never got to that point. I was like, at some point I was like, I'm tired of it. I'm done. I just can't anymore. You just get tired of, I'm sorry, like for lack of a better term, the BS, because there's a lot of it that goes on, right? There's other things that all the unspoken rules and all the other things that we don't really talk about when we're trying to either make the decision whether or not just to remain and or just get out, and I think a lot of people, I don't know. I don't regret getting out when I did, but I do regret not taking the orders to freaking Spain. God dang it. That's the only regret I had in life. I had orders to Spain when I was active in the Navy, to Rota, and I was like, no, I'm going to get married and I'm going to go. And yeah, it's the worst decision. Not the worst decision. That's the one regret I have. I do have both my boys were born because of that, but it kind of just a regret. And
yeah, for me, it was really kind of the bubble bursting that I had this idea that I would be able to stay in the courtroom, or at least to be able to influence people in the courtroom. It was really important to me to use that skill and at least to be educating. I thought I would go to the graduate course in Charlottesville and I'd get to stay on. I'd even timed things to where the professor of criminal law who taught evidence, which is really like the meat and potatoes, that portfolio was going to be opening up. And I felt like I was an ideal candidate. And I talked to the individual who's going to be making the assignment decisions, and he said, "No, you're way too experienced for that position. I will never give it to you."
What?
I know. And I've told that story to so many like CEOs and COOs, and they're like, that makes no sense. And I said, well, there's a lot about the military that doesn't make any sense. And at the time, and it's still there's still some lingering part of the culture that judge advocates need to be generalists. They need to sort of understand all of the different facets of military law, and they shouldn't specialize. I couldn't disagree more. Like, their statutory like reason for existing is the UCMJ. It's for criminal justice as a tool for, commanders' discipline. I am a litigation powerhouse. Like, I've tried, more than 200 cases to a jury verdict. That those numbers are unheard of. You don't want to keep me and help me grow the bench. I mean, that's what one of the TJAGs wrote in my welcome memo when I got my job as a special victim counsel or special victim prosecutor was grow the bench. Like, we know you can litigate cases. Now we need you to grow the next generation. And I took that very seriously. So when I came back in as a reservist and I got to be on the faculty, I tried I actually created a curriculum to make improvements to what I thought needed to be made. And I got sort of that pat on the head of like, no, little reservist, sit in your corner. We don't need you to make anything better. And I was reminded of all of the reasons that it made so much sense for me to get the hell out of the military.
Right.
Because there's just this sedentary mentality that if you try to tell me that you need to improve something, you're saying I did something wrong. And so sort of that inertia that keeps everything the same. Well, that's just how we've always done it. Well, that doesn't make it good. So I launched my books, right? And it's like, and that's what the vice chair told me. He said, take what you're doing and just put it in a book. I was like, you know what? That's a really damn good idea. And so I have. So if I can't grow the bench that way, if the military didn't, value me in that role and wanted to shove me into different roles that I thought like, this just doesn't make business sense. Right. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pivot. So I pivoted.
Yeah. So which one was you wrote two? You've written 2 books so far, right?
I've written 5.
Oh, you only mentioned 2, so that's why I only mentioned 2. So my apologies.
No, you're good. So I have a series, a trial practice series called Shaping the Battlefield, and there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 that have already been published. I'm writing 5 right now. So those series. Are like how-tos kind of for practitioners. I think they also have some value if you are a military accused going through the process, if you want to understand more about what's happening to your life. And I think you should be an active participant in that process, then I think there's also some value there. But they're mostly geared toward helping practitioners, whether in uniform or out, to know more about how to practice military law.
Right. So, okay. So let me ask you this now. So as a private lawyer that, specializes in the UCMJ, are you still under the state bar? Or is it different? Because can you try cases anywhere in the U.S. because you're different?
The only requirement for a civilian practitioner or any judge advocate to practice in a uniform code of military justice courtroom, whether that's Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, et cetera, is that you have to be licensed in good standing of any state bar, and before that state bars, that state's highest court. So they're equivalent of the Supreme Court of that state. You can be in one state, multiple states, as long as you remain in good standing in at least one of them. You also have to swear an oath. I think it's very odd. I'm the only person in the room who comes into the court and swears to do my job.
What?
Every time. And it's like, Ms. Stewart, raise your right hand. Do you promise to do your best? I will, Your Honor. Thank you. I mean, that's the equivalent of it. It's like the prosecutor didn't promise that, clearly, not by his conduct. But yeah.
Where are your priorities here?
Right. And I was just talking to somebody about this. I still have to and I have to announce on the record where I'm licensed, what my state bar numbers are, all that kind of information. But the military uniform councils, that information's hidden. There's no transparency about it at all. So if somebody wants to file a complaint against them, the military hides it. Like they don't tell you. I had a client who wanted to file, and it was a righteous complaint against his uniform defense counsel for really dropping the ball on some things. And it took me calling the chief of the entire trial defense service in DC to say, hey, what's going on here? What's going on here? And we
That's
finally got the information. That's a problem. Transparency, lack of transparency is a huge problem.
Is that because they want to protect the military lawyers? Is that what
Absolutely. So there's actually its own, there's a code of conduct office that is supposed to police ethics issues for uniformed counsel. And I've never seen stuff swept under the rug more than in that office. There are multiple things that they are required, if it's even raised, they're required to forward it on to the state bar of that individual, and they don't. They just don't. So we've seen a lot of problems with prosecutorial misconduct that gets swept under the rug.
That is interesting, at the fact that they're not required like you are, you know, because you're on the private side. But I mean, to me, it seems like that's kind of unfair.
Absolutely. And I represent medical providers, right, who are credentialed through the military. There are certain things under, especially into the new DHS system, where they are automatically sending stuff to their board licenses, and they haven't even been determined to have done anything. They just say, hey, you know, this has to go to the National Practitioner Data Bank. So it gets flagged on their records. And the new DHS, this is ridiculous. Like, it used to at least be, if it was something about you being a bad provider, right? Like you were impaired or you weren't good at your job. And so then your board gets notified. That I don't have a problem with. Now, under the new rules, like if a doctor goes out and has a fender bender and maybe they found out he had a 0.08, nobody's really hurt, he wasn't on duty, he didn't fail in his duty, that's automatically now being sent to the National Practitioner Data Bank. Anything at all, even if it's not related to their practice.
What?
Yeah. Like, what are we doing here?
I'm kind of mind blown right now, because I honestly, I get that the military obviously has its own, you know, laws and everything, but the separatism between, you know, a private and also like the military, that it shouldn't be. You're still both lawyers regardless. You, one of them is specialized obviously in the military law, but it should still be the same. It should still be held under the same oath, it should still be held under the same standards. I think to make it fair, it just makes no sense to me that happens. I'm sorry, I'm just mind blown right now.
Well, and especially now, because now that commanders have lost discretion in prosecuting several kinds of cases, and now that is being left to the judge advocates, it's even more ridiculous. There's a reason my podcast is called Where All the Bodies Are Buried. Once a month, I announce some secret that the court does not want announced about you know, which former prosecutor got a DUI and nothing happened to them, which former, you know, Lieutenant Colonel Jag beat the shit out of his wife and he got quietly retired. That does not happen in other branches the way that it happens in the JAG Corps.
Okay, can you answer me this? And I'm not trying to put you in any predicament, but I do have a situation that happened that I know of, and I would like your input on this. And if you cannot answer or do not wish to answer, please say, Caesar, please shut the hell up and or move on or something of that nature. But you're a lawyer. I get it. You're gonna say it in the nicest way possible with, you know,
maybe
say okay. So I'm a young E4 checking into my first command. It was a aircraft carrier, and I'm checking in San Diego. The captain that, you know, 06 captain of the Navy, the commanding officer of the ship, had, it was a well-known thing. He actually got brought back by base police, by the MAs, all the way up to the bow. It's not the bow, but all the way to the entrance of the ship, and they parked his car and everything. They kind of hit it, where he actually got pulled over on base with a DUI. This is in 06, right? Now, several years later, that same man actually ends up getting his star as an 07. Is there, like, that to me, it seems like there's some type of preferential treatment when it gets to that point. Because, you know, we all know about, the Article 15 in the Army, and also like, the captain's mast, as they call it in the Navy, is that if somebody, especially an enlisted sailor or enlisted member, gets a DUI on base, they get hammered. They get 45 or 60 in reduction in rank and reduction in rate, what is it, 6 months or 3 months of pay or whatever it is. But they get hammered, like it get thrown the book at them, and it was just like that happened. It's like, what happened? Like you got your star out of this? You did the
people
same
call that
business?
different spanks for different ranks, right? That's pretty common.
So that is a common practice. Like,
it definitely has historically been accurate. I know that what I would say is that there has been a trend to try to appear like that's not the case. And that's part of what is at least driving some of the sentencing guidelines that are being pushed into the UCMJ, is to try to make things less of a chasm of difference. What I would say is, it's a tightrope, right? Because I think one of the things that I would actually say is a benefit under the UCMJ, or something that works better, is that there is such broad discretion to take into account the individual circumstances of a particular case. I know people, like if you check the periodicals on the base, or you read the bulletin board or wherever they're putting that out, you'll be like, wait, E3, larceny, he gets 6 months. And then you're like, there's this 04 who committed larceny and he got no jail time. Like, what's going on here? I would say that, like, there really is. I always have to tell my clients, because they'll start Googling, right?
Right.
Like, oh, well, this is my case and this person got this. And I'm like, step away from the Google, right? Like, every case is so unique. And I think that they're in the right hands. It's good to have discretion to be able to say something is an individual. Now, what you're talking about is not taking any action at all. And I think that's horse crap, right? So like, there's something to be said about broader discretion within sentencing structures. And I think if we are headed toward like the federal sentencing guidelines, there, you may not even like need to be having anybody defend you, because you're just, there's an expression like defense attorneys become like a speed bump on the way to justice. Like you just a hiccup. Like you can't really have a deep impact. I had a longtime friend who was in uniform, a defense attorney for like ever. He was an activated reservist, and he was always doing MOBs to defend people. I learned a lot from him as a young prosecutor. When he switched sides, he became a federal public defender. He did that for a very short amount of time. And then he became a federal prosecutor, and I was shocked. I'm like, what are you doing switching sides, man? And he said, I can do more justice as a prosecutor. He said, I could do nothing for my clients. And he's like, don't ever stop defending military and veterans, because if you go to the federal side, he said, I have a hard time finding anything good that these people did in their lives. At least you can say that every single one of your clients, no matter what they're accused of, they volunteered to serve their country. They showed up. I'm like, oh, but yeah, no, different spanks for different ranks. That's very classic. When I was lucky enough to be on a team prosecuting a very senior colonel, an 06 in the Army, who had sexually harassed and assaulted 9 women from E5 to 05.
Wow.
And I was green, but I was fired up. He was their commander in Kosovo. And I will never forget this. Talk about the culture shift, right? So I got called into my boss's office. He's a major. And he said, hey, because we had OPCON over for UCMJ over the Balkans. This happened in Kosovo. He said, hey, there's some case that's kind of percolating up. It looks like a bunch of women got together and just kind of got their stories together, and they're accusing some commander. And I'm like, okay, I'm on it. So I look into it. The women knew each other. They were, they worked in the hospital. Some were nurses, some were practitioners. They had similar stories, but I started digging. And when I dug into it, I found an anonymous IG complaint against him for the same behavior in Georgia. I found another anonymous IG complaint against him at Campbell. And then when I dug into his reserve unit, I got a list of those who mobbed and those who had been identified to mob. And I identified one woman who didn't go. So she didn't know any of these women in Kosovo.
Uh-huh.
And when I reached out to her, I didn't tell her why. The case had been quiet. It was not in the press. And I just said, I want to understand your experience. And I got her to open up. And she starts telling me the exact same crap that guy had been doing to those other 8 women while deployed.
Wow.
And I walked into my boss's office and I said, I just found the nail in the coffin. This woman does not know any of them, and her story is the same. And so when we were looking at how to handle it, my boss's boss, they were all very reluctant to think about doing a court martial, because when you court martial a senior colonel, you're supposed to have jury members who were senior. So we're looking at a panel of generals, 1 stars, 2 stars, because this guy was a very, very senior colonel. You can be senior in grade, but that was going to be hard to do. And so my boss said, call Trial Counsel Assistance Program. They're still existing. That's like, the eyes in the sky in DC. They're supposed to help train and mentor prosecutors. So call them, see what they say. So we had a call with that guy, Kevin Boyle. And Kevin Boyle laughed in my face. And he said, if you take it, because they were offering for this colonel to be able to put in a retirement in lieu of court martial. Nothing would happen. He would just simply retire.
What?
And my office wanted to take it. And I'm like, F this. So we called Kevin Boyle to get his take. And he said, he just it was very dismissive of me. And he said, if you end up taking it to court, call me if you get anything more than a reprimand. So we take it to court. The guy got a dismissal, which is the equivalent of a dishonorable discharge, and 3 years confinement. He lost.
Wow. Retirement and everything.
Yep. And did I want to call Kevin Boyle and say nanny boo boo? Yes, but I didn't. But he did find out about it. It was the biggest verdict, that had happened to somebody of that senior nature. But he helped me out, right? Like he made the case for me during sentencing. He actually turned to the generals who were sitting in judgment of him, who had convicted him of 26 specifications in 33 minutes. What? Do we think they really voted? I think they went back there and shot the breeze for like 33 minutes, and they were all like, guilty? Yes. So
Dang.
He's on the stand. He's getting to address them for sentencing, and he says, look, I see how the military handles senior leader misconduct. Just let me retire. He said that. It's so brazen. And that really was the culture. That was the belief. And I think, around this time, there started to be more of a shift in culture. This was 2006. So you see it more. There's more generals, who are being charged, sometimes righteously, sometimes not. But we are starting to see those cases happen more often.
Wow. It, was that one of the cases that actually made your career?
No.
We got dirt. I wish I had a little like thingamajig-bobs that you would play. We're like, nope.
Yeah, I already have the title of that book like in my head. I just haven't written it. It's called the Kissin' Colonel of Kosovo. Right? That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
One of many projects I'll get to before I die.
It's in your bucket list, and it should probably be. When do you find this time to actually okay, for those of you that don't know, Jocelyn is actually like a huge she's got a pretty good following on TikTok, and that's actually where I found her, because I was I peruse through TikTok every once in a while, and sometimes you just kind of need that mindless just rest your thoughts or whatever. You just kind of need that mindless something to like. I find myself
dopamine hits. Just scroll.
I just find these I don't know if you've seen these the apes or the gorillas that are actually like very popular right now, that are giving these like jokes, and I just they're dumb jokes, right? Some of them are like pretty racy as far as like sexist and borderline racist, but still it's funny. I like dark humor just like any other military member, so it doesn't bother me, right? But doing one of those scrolls, I found some of her content, and I was like, it's I don't remember which one it was, but it was you were giving advice for one, because you had, I think one of your cases that you had, it was just like, so boys and girls, don't do this. It was like her content is of that. Obviously she has more content of other things and stuff like that, so You have to check her out. She's known as the messy military lawyer on TikTok, and I'm sure that's your other handle, the same handle on the other platforms. But I've seen both on TikTok and also on Facebook. And man, I'll tell you what, this is why I was like, you know what, they're probably. And I kept thinking, I think the first or second time I saw it, I was like, I have to get her on the show. I have to get her on the show, and I'll reach out, and I was like, that's right. I'm just gonna reach out and see what happens. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, here we are, which is great.
It was an interesting phenomenon, right? Like I approached it. A friend of mine had been after me forever to get onto TikTok, and I had this mentality that there wasn't really a market for me there. I had this idea that it was just E1s and E2s, and it's just not my target market, that sort of thing. And I did not realize what a strong and robust military TikTok, community was there. Yeah. And so then I said, okay, because I did a little bit of market research. I wanted to see if anybody was really in this space. And I didn't find any military attorneys doing anything. And then I found other attorneys who were just they've got their certificates behind them. They're in suits or ties, and they're trying to lawyer at you. And I'm like, I don't want to watch this. This is the worst thing that I've ever seen. I want, engage with people. So I committed to an experiment where I said, I'll do 3 videos a day for 30 days and let's see what happens.
Where did you find the time for one?
Well, I'm an efficiency junkie, right? So I batch shoot, and then I edit, and then I have them there, and I would have a timer, and I would file them off. I'm a systems person. That's why I think I can and do so as many projects as I do. And it became, I had about 1,000 followers at the end of that 30 days, and I'm like, okay. And so I kept feeding it. And then I had, a video that went viral, and that was crazy. That was just so strange to I'd get on check. I'm like, what the heck is happening? And it was one, and it's always where people want to yell at you because half the people think you're wrong and half the people think you're right. But it was about privacy, right? It's pinned at the top of my content. It's about I still tell everyone. I get really annoyed if I'm around anybody and I see that they have face unlock or anything digital, like a fingerprint to get into the phone, because I'm like, that means the cops can do it too. What are you doing? And people were like, oh, I didn't have anything to hide. Okay, well, I had a client whose wife set him up. He had a few drinks. He's sleeping on the couch. She grabs his thumb or whatever and gets his phone open. And she's already plotting that they're going to divorce. And so she creates and fabricates text messages that make it look like he's having an affair with an E4 in his unit. He's a first lieutenant promotable.
Oh my God.
And it looked legit. Right. And so we had to dig into it. I went and met with the general, and everyone's like, there's no way. And I went into it, and I had figured out what the general's phone number was, and I spoofed a conversation between him and I. It could have gone either way. Right. This is this is a very risky move. I'm not encouraging anybody to do this, but I slid it to him and I said, General, I can't believe that you sent me these racy texts. And he's like, I said, all I needed was your phone number. That's it. That's all I needed. And I created this. And doesn't it look real? And, he ripped up my guy's GOMAR, his journal officer memorandum of reprimand. And my client was cleared to go on to this school that was going to be, career accomplishing for him. And it's just you can't be so anybody who's like, oh, I have nothing to hide. Okay, man, whatever. Yes, I live in a world of paranoia, but I'm going to be safe. So I'm not paranoid if they're really out to get me. Right. So,
right. That's why I always, people always make this disclaimer. I am not suicidal. I'm fine. That type of thing. That's living with paranoia. Cause you would say, oh, I am not suicidal, which is true, but I've seen a lot of these, like I mentioned, Candace Owens actually said that earlier on one of her things, because she did this series that was called Becoming Brigitte, and she was talking about the First Lady of France. Well, she did I think it was a 10-part series or something like that, and this is over the last 10 months has been going on. Anyway, long story short is that Candace Owens got sued by the Macrons, the president and the first lady of France, for defamation of character to her. Her whole claim about it is that she claims that Candace Owens claims that Brigitte Macron is not actually a woman, that she is a man. And yeah, it's wild. You have to like literally go in there.
Yeah, I haven't followed that at all.
Yeah, you gotta check it out. You gotta look at Candace Owens. Anyway, long story short is that there have been other people that actually have said it as well, and they were kind of silenced. And they went back and actually said, you know what, they were honorated or exonerated from the things, right? And they are now taking those two people. There was two women, those two what do you call them? Not judgments, but they're called their testimonies, as like, oh well, now there is some validity to it because somebody else actually did it, and it is wild. And she had to say one of those things because like apparently one person that was involved in that whole thing ended up being mysteriously died died under mysterious circumstances after he discovered something with money being lost or whatever. And so she said, I am not suicidal, there's nothing wrong with me, blah blah blah. Because yeah, it's wild.
She's like worried that somebody's going to try to take her out.
It's wild. I was like, you know, and you get like you find them. I found them like just like on your For You page on TikTok. And it's like, you know, these little, you know, 1-2 minute things, and it's just like, oh, it is wild. I honestly encourage you to kind of follow it. Especially, I think you'd like it because it has so much legal stuff going in there. And
yeah, sometimes that stuff's hard for me to watch. It's like,
oh yeah, no, it will be because it will be because when they met, he was like 14, 15, and he was in school, and she or he was his teacher. Therefore, like they feel like whatever it's called, she groomed him to, you know, to be what he is now. But then then this morning I saw this other one. Actually, she pointed out that in his official photo there is a book from a guy that I can't remember the name of it now, but there's a book by a guy that actually was known as he was open to actually that he liked little boys, basically. It's wild. This whole thing, I'm like, it goes way beyond all that stuff. So anyway,
people on TikTok will get to the bottom of it for sure. It's kind of amazing.
And yeah,
people are little detectives.
She is. I'm telling you, she is like ruthless. She's like, I'm ready for you. Let's go. And you know, when they actually served her about with this lawsuit, you would think that, you know, what happens when somebody sues you? Somebody will actually serve you, right? Will give you
the personal service. They have to hand it to you, like you see in the movies. You have been served. Yeah.
You know who they gave it to first? When they actually did it, they didn't give it to her or her lawyers. They went to the New York Post and to like other media outlets before she even got it. So she's like, this is just a PR stunt. Like all they're doing is like, why wouldn't they give it to me? So anyway, long story short, but that it's a great little thing. I'm like, ooh, this is intriguing. You know, like
the best thing I've found on TikTok, I keep telling every woman that I meet, and that's probably not my audience here, but like it's this woman, it's called the We Do Not Care Club, and it is for perimenopausal and menopausal women, and it is all the stuff that we no longer care about, and I am in stitches. Like it's fantastic. It made it to The View. It made it like it's been all over the media. And so we do not, if you want to understand more about your wives and partners, check out the We Do Not Care Club because it is
Yeah.
incoming.
Or just watch Lifetime. Just watch Lifetime.
No, this is about like the anger. Like women are tired of dealing with all the stuff and all the things they're about to check out about.
So we have a comment on our social media. Josh Maccabee says, "Evening. I worked a bit with Jag when I was in, so I'm ready to hear more stories. So by popular demand, Josh wants to hear more stories. So let me just preface this because I want to ask you. You talked about the general that actually, the senior colonel that actually got pretty much like lost everything. He got 3 years incarceration. He lost his retirement. He lost pretty much everything he worked for so many years. He lost it because there was 9, right? Correct?
9 women that he had
9 women that
sexually harassed and assaulted.
So what was the case that actually made your career? That you feel made your career?
I like to say that I was in the right place in the right time for a couple of things. That one certainly was a big piece of it. But I think the case that probably, it probably is that one. But I'll preface it with what kind of came before that one. So because our jury were composed of general officers, it was not long after that there was sort of this forum where they wanted to try to encourage captains to stay in. And so there was this like forced fun and we had to sit through a bunch of stuff, and it was in Mannheim. I had prosecuted that case in Kaiserslautern in K-Town. And I was standing there. It just so happened to be that I was talking to an 03 level commander, and I was trying to persuade him to, take a certain action on a case. And he was really kind of resisting. He just wasn't really buying it. One of the generals who had been on my jury as a 1-star had made 2-star, and he spots me at this event, and he crosses the room and he comes over to me and he said, I'll never forget this. He said, "We see you, we remember you, and we're going to be watching your career." And that's how a lot of senior JAGs end up becoming.
Oh, he was a JAG. I'm sorry. He was a JAG.
He was not a JAG. He was a line officer. But like when they go to become 2-star, 3-stars, 4-stars, they get a lot of input about who they select to be their JAG, who they want to be their legal advisor. And so I'm like, you're one to watch. And so that was definitely a big one, I would say. But about a month into being in my first prosecution job, on the 5th of July, so 4th of July weekend, 2025, we had a dead body in the barracks. And Sergeant Juwan L. Johnson. If anybody was anywhere near AFN radio or AFN TV, in the mid to late 2000s, you heard about that case. There was an offer of a reward for information leading to, successful prosecution and conviction of the individuals responsible. So we were hearing whisperings that it was gang related. And it took me around 2 years. We finally broke the case and took the first guy to court martial. There were 9 co-accused, and I headed up the team. I was going to be cross-detailed to prosecute the ones who were Air Force. The majority of them were Army, but there were a few that were Air Force. And so I was part of a task force that led that case. I would say that was probably at least the most notorious case that I was involved with as a prosecutor. Ended up, Discovery Channel had a Gangland series that they were doing, and they covered that case. It was a big deal. I had a security detail. The gang came after me at one point. I was late working one night in my office, and they tried to intimidate me. The case was a big deal. And it definitely was a part of my life for years, because even after I left the prosecution office and I became a defense counsel, they made me come back as a defense counsel and prosecute some of these cases. And so then I still left. The crazy part was there was a civilian who was kind of considered to be the ringleader. This was part of a gang initiation where they had beaten this man to death. And the guy who was the civilian, he had been kicked out of the Air Force. He had been with the Air Force. His spouse was Air Force, so that's why he was still in Europe. But after the death happened, he flew back to the States and was kind of under the radar. So me and some of the agents wanted to kind of poke around. I said, well, let's poke around mom, right? Everybody's got a weak point. Sometimes it's their mama. So we sent federal agents to his mom's house. Next thing we know, this guy calls up the FBI's resident office in Atlanta and starts threatening the agents. And he cops to a murder, an unsolved murder that had happened near Pope Air Force Base, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So I had authored what's called a MIJA request. The Military Extraterritorial Jurisdiction Act was enacted because sometimes people accompanying the force in foreign countries, Iraq, Afghanistan, right, everywhere we've got contractors, and even in Europe, when you're accompanying the force, there's not a clear jurisdictional hook to get you. And so MIJA kind of answered that, so that if you're accompanying the force, you can be prosecuted in like the District of Washington, like DC. That's usually where the U.S.A. is. And there was even like a group of prosecutors there, and a couple of them were former JAGs who I knew. And so when he fled, I wrote the MIJA request that, if they ever find this guy, that they can go after him. So it got ignored until he called the FBI's field office in Atlanta and started threatening people and copping to this murder. And so, like, I want to say like 10 years later, he was Rodrigo Williams was being prosecuted in DC for his responsibility in the death. Those federal prosecutors were still calling me up, asking me to help walk them through the case. I was like, the case is not hard. There's a picture of him throwing the gangs. Like, we found this a lot of gang symbols and gang signs, but we also found, like, a big piece of evidence that we found was a photograph of all of them throwing the gang sign. I was like, he's in that photo. They're like, yeah, the Air Force threw the photo away. I was like, what? Like, how does it, what are you even talking about? And they said, well, when some of those guys copped out on pleas for smoking marijuana, they got rid of their case file. And I was like, well, I've got my file. I've got it right here. Do you think you can send it to us? So, I mean, I carried around this box for like 10 years of my life, this case file. It was thousands of pages, and all the defense attorneys would get super annoyed because they're like, Jocelyn didn't, they'd complain to the judge. Oh, she didn't serve us this document or that document. I'm like, judge's like, is it in there? Yes, Your Honor, it's in there. They're like, well, where in there? I'm like, that's your problem. That's not my problem. Like, I had this, tens of thousands of pages long case file. It's not my responsibility to like organize it for you. That's your problem. But I apparently saved this prosecution of the civilian, only to then his conviction ended up being overturned. I'm like, I can't. You guys just fuddled all up.
How the hell was it overturned? What the hell just happened?
Actually, it was kind of like that when you're driving along on the highway and there's this like really bad accident and you just have to look away. I actually don't know. I just know that it was overturned. And I thought, like, he was the worst of all of them, and you guys mucked that up. Like, I can't even. I actually ceremoniously burned the file when I found out that case was over. He was the last one. I was like, I need to burn some sage or something. Like, I need to clean myself of this case. It just, it permeated everything. And it was just like, it was my life for a really, really long time.
Okay, so we talked about a couple of cases that you obviously were involved in. Which one was your favorite case that you ever worked? Do you even have one?
I don't even know how to answer that, right? Like, because favorite has so many different connotations. I'll say that you really enjoyed. That you really, really enjoyed. Like, oh, this is fun. Okay, sorry, not fun. all of it's hard, right? Because I try to, I write a lot about this stuff. I try to bring a lot of levity to it, certainly, because like you said, like, we've got some of the like darkest humor. Oh my gosh, the stuff that we have seen and have had to deal with. There was a group of us, we were attending the career prosecutors course in South Carolina, and we went to this because it was a 2-week long course. And so the weekend between, we planned this tour to go see Fort Sumter. So we're on this boat, going around and seeing Fort Sumter. And we are so not aware of ourselves. We're talking cases, we're telling stories. And one of our colleagues noticed that every single person on the ship with an earshot moved the hell away from us. Like, they were just horrified. I'm like, is the boat going to tip? Right? Like, it was that substantial that we horrified like that many people with what felt very normal to us. And we're like, oh, we're around others. We're around people who like don't see this dark and seedy side. There was definitely a time in my life when I would say that, and I told people like closing argument is the most fun you can ever have with your clothes on, right? Like it was something that I like. It's a moment, right? It is because people are like, you never went into like, actress, you weren't doing comedy. I'm like, stepping into the well of the courtroom to give a closing argument is the intersection of drama and debate, right? Like it is the meshing of those two worlds.
Right.
And so while I certainly have enjoyed that, later in my life, seeing the deep impact and having, lost clients to self-harm, it's hard to say what I have enjoyed. Like I enjoy when prosecutors lose because they didn't measure up. I enjoy like being that tip of the spear to like make sure that we're not just going to let Congress change all of our laws and erode every protection that we had. But there's definitely been some funny moments, right? I try to capture those on my YouTube bloopers, like, bloopers from court martial, where it's like this serious moment, this like crazy, random, hilarious thing will happen, and you've got to like hold it together. But it's hard to say what's been my favorite. I would say, like, I guess how I would answer that would be to say, like, I felt like a very deep and sincere gratitude for, like, because I still, whether it's the universe or whether it's your higher power or wherever you are on that spectrum, like I ended up representing the 06 commander who they were trying to sacrifice at Fort Hood after Vanessa Guillen's murder. Okay. I represented her 06 level commander from the regiment, from 30 CR.
We'll get to that story here in a minute. Okay. Right. First of all, I want to say hello to Travis and Charlene Middleton. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I met them the other night on one of my other shows, not my show, but one of our other shows on our network, Politishock, with Dan Samariglio, and I met them there, and they were very, very engaging, and it was super fun and talk to them. So thank you for tuning into my show. But first, I need to do this because I'm getting a little parched, so I need to get some water. Okay. So I'm gonna play a little video that you may like. This is about I play this every week, and I'm sorry, like people are like, "Oh my God, you play this every week." Yes, I play it every week. I know, okay, but this is why I play it every week. This is very important to me in the fact that people don't know a lot of the military history and a lot of different, stories, personal stories, right? That people that you may not ever think were, held as, well that we as veterans, we don't consider ourselves heroes. I never once will consider myself a hero because I didn't, I didn't give I'm still here, right? I think more of us, like, we're still like more of like somewhat of like survivor's remorse type of thing. We're like, I'm a survivor more than anything, right? But a lot of the people that actually are the heroes are all the ones that never came back, right? Sure. All the ones that that actually got the Medal of Honor recipients. Those guys are the real heroes. Me, I'm just a dude that had a job and I was lucky enough to go travel the world. That's how I look at it. Yes. Sure. Do I have some issues? Yeah. I mean, everybody has issues at this point. You know what I'm saying? But I do want to play this video for you because I think it's very important. I said, so this is a video that I was actually a news story from one of my very good friends. Her name is Bailey Vaughn. She's from the local ABC and NBC affiliates here in my hometown, and I want to show you this video because it's super cool. It's a 96-year-old Marine veteran who actually was part of the Chosen Frozen on the Chosen Reservoir. So the battle of this is during the Korean War. It's a really, really cool story, but I need you guys to enjoy it, pay attention to it. It's because I'm going to come back and actually quiz you on this. Oh, there's a quiz. Yeah, I didn't tell you about that. There's a quiz about this. It's a quick little video, and you're gonna definitely enjoy it. But you, like I said, it's super enjoyable. For me, it's always enjoyable to play it. I mean, it's because I really like. I'm I'm a nerd when it comes to history sometimes, and I just like doing that. So let's play this video real quick. But first, let me do my station identification. You are listening to the Battle Rhythm Podcast. I'm here with Jocelyn Stewart, the messy military lawyer, and you are listening to us on Voice of the People U.S.A. Radio and Television Network, also on Busey Digital and on Patriot Radio, and very, very soon on, she already said it, AFN. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. So we'll see how that goes. All right. Without further ado, here is the Tootsie Roll Man.
As he approaches his 96th birthday, Jim Hahn still remembers intimate details about his time serving as a Marine in World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War. And he also remembers how it all started.
Mother wasn't going to sign. I told her, I said, if you don't sign this, I'll lie about my age. And she signed.
He was inspired to enlist when walking down the street at 16 years old. He tells K10 he saw some people messing with a Marine and his girlfriend.
They was doing anything they could try to make him mad. He told his girlfriend there to go down and wait for him at the red light at the end of the street there. He turned around and whipped all four of those guys.
A year later, he was off to San Diego for basic training. Hahn joined the occupation force in both China and Japan during World War II, which marks the only time in the history of Japan that it has been occupied by a foreign power. A bitter time these days, though. Gunnery Sergeant Hahn holds tight to the sweeter moments.
It's going into Japan, there, into town. Well, I seen all these little kids running around there, and they look like they're hungry and everything else. So I started in getting candy from our TX and taking in there and giving it to the little kids. It got to where whenever I'd come inside the city limits, man, here come all these kids.
What he didn't realize at the time, candy would one day become his lifeline. In November of 1950, just a few months after the Korean War began, 8,000 fighters, mostly Marines, were trapped in the Chonjin Reservoir, surrounded by 120,000 Chinese soldiers. And you guessed it, Sergeant Hahn was one of those Marines.
If somebody told me this, I'd have thought of him as being a liar, because I did not think that it would get 90 degrees below zero. I seen guys just walking along, and all of a sudden I could stop walking, and they just did. They'd freeze to death while they was walking.
Freezing, barely hanging on to life. The Marines called for ammunition using their code word, Tootsie Roll.
I never will forget that. They got on the radio there and talking to them, said, send us some Tootsie Rolls. And they was talking about ammunition, a certain type of ammunition.
Well, the soldier on the other end of that radio took the message literally, and they dropped into the reservoir Tootsie Rolls.
Here's just 3 planes there coming out with these parachutes coming down there with Tootsie Rolls. It's supposed to be ammunition, but it's Tootsie Rolls. But if it hadn't been for them, a lot of us, including me, would probably starve to death.
Those little chocolate candies were the fuel that sustained the troops. All other provisions were frozen, so they survived on the chocolate.
It seemed impossible that they was there for any other reason than to save my life. I thank God many times the fact that I lived through all of it, didn't lose any arms or legs or anything that way. I sat in this foxhole, people all around me freezing, and some reason or other I didn't.
He says all he thought about was his next breath and how he would use it.
I don't know, I still think about it sometimes. I know that God saved me from it. Try to thank God 3 or 4 or 5 times a day about that.
Decades later, Sergeant Hahn literally holds on to that memory with a bucket of Tootsie Rolls made specifically for him with American flags after the company heard his story. Those Marines that made it out are now revered as the heroes of the Frozen Chosen. But this one calls Texoma home, and he chooses to spend his time right here in the Sherman VFW.
I feel like they're brothers. This, to me, is part of the military.
As this veteran reflects on a life of service most would never know, Hahn would do every second of it again. The few, the proud, the Marines. It was such an honor to be able to sit down with Jim. And I just want to say right here on the record, thank you for your service. Not only a World War II veteran, a 3-war veteran. He decided to just keep going back. I know.
And you know, I had heard that, I knew that there was something involving Tootsie Rolls, but that was the first time I actually heard that full story.
Welcome back to the Battle of the Podcast here on Voice of the People USA Radio and Television Network, Busey Digital and Patriot Radio, and I am here still joined by Jocelyn Stewart, who is a former JAG officer and still a defender of the UCMJ, or as better known as a UCMJ defender, and she is telling us about some great stories that had happened within her career. And let me tell you, if you don't know anything about military law, then you should probably watch a really, really well-known movie by the name of what's the one with Tom Cruise?
A Few Good Men.
A Few Good Men. Was that your inspiration to actually become a JAG lawyer at that point?
It wasn't my inspiration, but I definitely at one point had like every line of that movie memorized. I wore out my VHS copy. I'm dating myself.
Yeah, he did, exactly. Hey, you know what? It's true though. I'm not gonna lie. I was in A school in the Navy out in Pensacola, which is basically the aviation, right? That's where the Blue Angels were at. And I kid you not, every barracks room every barracks that we went to, every rec room, if I didn't hear that stupid song from the original Top Gun, oh my god. It was so played out. I was like, it was almost 15 years since I watched that movie. And it was like, because I heard so much. And it was just like, oh, this is great. I can't wait to get out in the fleet. I'm like, everybody was like, they're trying to be all gung-ho and everything. I'm like, you guys just don't know. You just relax, chill out. Let's just, enjoy the moment. But like, no, it's Top Gun, dude. I'm getting like so pumped up. Anyway.
I remember traveling TDY, when I was prosecuting and somebody said, oh, you're a JAG. Like, are you like Demi Moore and A Few Good Men? I said, no, I'm more like Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah, you were the popular one. Yeah. They're not the popular one. All right. So we left off. You were telling us about one of the most current ones, really, about special. Was she a specialist? Specialist Guillen?
She was.
Right.
She was a specialist.
But then it's weird because I feel that there was not soon after that there was another case of another soldier that was actually missing as well. But this is like I think several months after that happened. But
yeah, I didn't follow that one. Obviously, Guillen became a big focus because I took on the representation. I knew that there were things going on, but like I told you before, like I have so much going on that I pay attention to when I need to. Right. And so apparently, as things were kind of going sideways, and it became clear that all of the people in command were about to become essentially sacrificed to very poor public relations for this sort of like idea that they were somehow responsible in her death. And his judge advocate, like his legal advisor, said, "Sir, you need to find representation. You need to find. I would recommend civilian counsel." And he said, "Do you have anybody in mind?" And he said, "There's only one name," and he gave him mine. I thought that was, that's the best compliment I can ever be paid is that referral. And he had been an intern when I was doing special victim prosecution in Kansas years before that. And so he called me up. I got excited to work on the case after talking to him. He's one of those individuals that if you've ever met him, you would end up wanting to walk across hot coals for him. He was just one of those commanders, right? Ralph.
Was he kind of caught in the crossfire? Like it was
absolutely like, and so I what really appealed to me about his case was when he was asking me, obviously there was this 15-6 that we knew was coming, and they were going to be most likely levying derogatory findings against him. And so he has the opportunity to respond to the derogatory findings before any negative action is supposed to be taken based off the investigation. And so we knew that was coming, but why, at that stage of life, at this point in my career, I call it, I've gotten really tired of legal whack-a-mole, right? Like one case pops up, I defend that person, I, pop it back down. And it's just sort of like, it's never ending. And people do it, you can make a great financial gain at doing it. But for me, it's always been about trying to make a bigger ripple effect in the system. And what ended up happening with this case was that he came to me and he said, look, I mean, I want to defend myself here. I also would really like to improve the system, and specifically the SHARP program, sexual harassment, assault response program, SAPR for some of the Air Force guys. Like it's got a different name kind of everywhere, but that idea, he said, this is broken because, Vanessa Gann had felt like she could not make disclosures about harassment that was happening to her. That was kind of becoming apparent as we were diving into this case. And I said, man, have you come to the right place? I have literally been blogging about how to fix this, having been a part of it from the inside for the last 10 years. And so we get served this thousands of pages, 15-6 that had been compiled. And we got served the Fort Hood Independent Review Committee, which was like another 1,600 pages. And it came to me like on December 22nd. And I'm on winter break and I'm with my kids. And they tell us we have 2 weeks to respond.
Of course.
And I'm like, I'm going to need like 3-4 months. And they came back and said, you got a month. So I took that thing apart and did some of what I would say was my best work, not only in like just illustrating where like sometimes bad stuff just happens, right? And that does not appease the Gann family. That's never going to bring their daughter back. For all the people who loved her, I'm not here to taint her memory. And that was a terrible, horrible thing that happened. But that doesn't mean that Colonel Overland was responsible for it in any shape or form, especially when I saw all the things that he had done. And so what I'm most proud of is not only that he was the only commander cleared of all wrongdoing, but we had the opportunity and the voice, because that was going to FORCECOM, right? Our audience was FORCECOM commander. And so Ralph allowed me to draft some policy changes that we felt needed to be had in helping to move the needle on the broader picture. Within 48 hours of turning that into the FORCECOM commander, FORCECOM changed their policy and then pushed it up to the Department of the Army, and those changes have been implemented. And so although I wouldn't say I enjoyed going through those thousands of pages, I would do it again in a heartbeat for that man, because he was a phenomenal, fantastic individual human who was being sacrificed by a very, very unfortunate handling and bumbling of public relations is really what it comes down to. So because of that writ large, those ripple effects, right? Which is where I find my energy drawn these days, is to be able to make that kind of an impact.
So what was the findings? I know there were several studies that happened after, or a lot of AARs that happened after that, that obviously there was failed policies, right? But it wasn't just on him.
No,
right?
yeah. So the three specific findings that came up for Colonel Overland, one of them dealt with saying that they had poor communication with the family. Absolutely not the case. The 03 level commander spoke Spanish, and he became the point person for it. The family was refusing communication from the Army by that point because CID had alienated them by that point. So that we were able to dismantle that finding. There was a finding that alleged that Colonel Overland's policies in place during COVID and the everybody stay at home kind of thing was deficient in being able to maintain accountability for people. which they say led to, why why they did not realize she was missing for as long as she was,
Right.
which absolutely was completely bogus. He put out the only policy on Fort Hood. It was in writing. There were bed checks. What happened that night was that the person who was responsible for doing that bed check didn't verify that she was there. That person was derelict in their duty. That wasn't Colonel Overland's policy. That wasn't Colonel, there was nothing that he could have done. Like, he created this very, it wasn't over the top. It was appropriate for the time. And the people just didn't do what they were supposed to. That's not on him as the commander. Like, you can only do so much.
Right.
And, writing for him, ghostwriting for him, understanding who he was and where he was coming from, it was gut-wrenching for him to have to defend himself while simultaneously feeling that as her commander, that he had failed her, right? Like, he saw all of his soldiers as somebody whose mothers and fathers had entrusted him with their safety and their well-being, and she didn't make it home to them. And he remembers every single person who didn't make it home when they were under his watch. Right. And so it was this tension between his like undeniable humanity and humility, but also needing to be making a stand that sometimes bad things just happen. Right. And I think the way we put it was that, one of the beautiful things about the military is its inherent desire to improve, right? The after action review, we're constantly reviewing, constantly trying to figure out how we could do it better. But in that, sometimes we get caught up to saying that because something could have gone differently, that means that the way that it went was wrong. And that's just not the case.
So
right?
was
Sometimes
he
bad things just happen.
Was he relieved of his
He
command?
was. He was illegally relieved. So we fought that post his retirement. There was an interesting issue because his relief came from the Secretary of Defense. Like, they did it publicly. And that person didn't even have the authority to do it by regulation. So we annihilated that. His evaluation was so we also defended his relief for cause officer evaluation report because it had been done illegally. And we were able to get that ripped up. And, it makes me sad because he was on a clear trajectory to be a general and to have been just such an honorable and capable man. So it derailed him. But we at least vindicated his name and he came out of it at least privately unscathed. Yeah.
But publicly, I'm sure he feels.
Well, he was smeared. No, I'm just,
right.
every single commander on Fort Hood got relieved. It was just cleaning house. But he was the only one that made it out of it with zero derogatory findings.
How much during that time? Because this dragged on for quite a bit, right? That whole case. How much did you? How much media attention did you get during this whole time? Because obviously
nobody knew I was involved.
Nobody really?
Nope.
Oh.
Well,
they do now.
unless the media can help my client, I'm not out there trying to get free marketing. You'll see those lawyers. Yeah. I'm usually to be known that I was involved in it after the fact. I come in and I ghost write, but like there were a lot of people in DC who read what we wrote. And, I've gotten several calls about like, if I'm ever in trouble, she's going to be the one that I call. I'm particularly proud of the work that we did, not because of the result is great, right? Another person was vindicated, but that's part of the legal whack-a-mole, right? But I'm most proud because we helped to shape policy, right? Somebody was listening. And it was just a very unique position.
I think this just gave way to another interview at some other point, and we would like to focus on that particular case because it made headway and it made so much noise, and I think, like you said, it definitely did change a lot of policies throughout the not only the Army but also throughout the entire DoD, right? I mean, I could be wrong, but I think it would be great to have another one of those discussions because obviously a lot of things have got to change, and I've known I remember watching a documentary one time where they were talking. There was a female talking about a female Marine officer that was talking about actually being in the barracks in D.C. or in Washington, Washington Marine barracks. That she was also assaulted, or there was that type of thing that happened, and she was. She couldn't say anything because then she would get blackballed. But if she didn't say anything, it was just one of those things. And actually, she was out of the military after she actually said that. So I think we can definitely dedicate another time or another interview for this type of deal. Because like I said, I was intrigued by actually watching that documentary that I think they had it on Netflix, either Netflix or Amazon. I can't remember which one it was, but watching the Menesegian case, and it was just interesting as to how they came about, how they discovered the body. But again, I think people seem to forget that there was other people involved, like, and they were trying to really hem it on all of the commanders that were, especially the commander, the company commander that was there under her, that she was under the command, and then obviously the base commander.
Right.
So,
base
yeah.
commander and the regimental commander. Yeah. Everybody got relieved, and their E9s. Yeah. As well.
Which is,
I started watching the Netflix documentary called I Am Vanessa Guillen that purported to cover the story. And I was yelling and throwing things at the screen.
Did anybody like
patently
video you?
False. It was patently, absolutely inaccurate. It was infuriating for me because I had the materials. I mean, I had all the evidence. I had, and again, like I want to make sure that I'm being very clear here that I don't mean to tarnish the loss of her life. That was absolutely tragic and horrible, and her family's pain. I cannot imagine. I'm a mother of 4. I cannot imagine that pain.
Right.
But the things that were told in that documentary were grossly inaccurate.
Well, we'll dedicate more time on this one, and I promise you it'll be good. I might do some research on it. I don't know. Just kidding. All right, so we have a question from the audience. I want to say, can you share your opinion on the Insurrection Act, and as it seems to be a hot topic lately?
I don't even know where to begin. That's something that I generally avoid those types of issues because give me your
lawyer answer.
I really don't have one, right? Like, I've seen some people covering it rather disrespectfully, I would say, on social media. There's an attorney who used to work for my firm who did I think it's an Instagram where he was wearing a United States American flag pin, and he turns it upside down. And he got a lot of flack for it, obviously, which I think was his point, right? More viewers, feed and more views and more eyeballs. But I will just say that I'm going to stay out of that one. Yeah, I'm going to stay out of that one.
Well, there you have it. I'm sorry. Tried, Josh. I'm sorry. I tried. She gave a very military lawyer response. I'm just kidding. I'm just totally kidding. All right. Let's switch a little bit of gears here. I've asked you earlier, or I mentioned earlier in the show, that a lot of us that actually have gotten out, there's a misconception whether or not we are still under the UCMJ, especially for those of us that actually are retired and have not hit the 30-year mark. Are those people still under the UCMJ? You have like a 21-year, you still have that 9-year between, fully retire, supposedly, right? Are veterans still under the UCMJ to any point?
So you asked me veteran, but you teed up retiree. So I'm going to answer it fully. Okay. Yes. Article 2 of the UCMJ tells us who is subject to the code, right? Article 2 mentions retirees. So if a person has a continuing, whether they served 30, whether they served 20, whether they served 6 and they were medically retired, anyone who is deriving benefits by not VA benefits, but the benefits of a retirement, like a pension, right? A retirement, whether it be medical, whether it be ordinary from after 20 years or 30, you are still technically subject to the code. and then some people, and I've put this out even on my TikTok as and I didn't preface it, but as a practical matter, I've only seen once when someone has tried, when the military has tried to exert UCMJ authority over a retiree for something that occurred during the period of retirement. As a practical matter, you typically will only see a reactivation or putting somebody back on orders for something that they learned about had been committed during the period of active service. Okay. Technically, the answer is you're still subject to the UCMJ, but as a practical matter, you don't see them putting you on orders for something other than what was like a capital murder or sexual assault. And we've had people that were reactivated and put back on orders to face UCMJ for being during a deployment. We all saw the case. It's probably the most substantial case, and that was the capital murder case of the Master Sergeant out of Fort Bragg. So his case was interesting because he was on the suspect list for raping and murdering a woman and her small children. One child hid underneath a blanket and survived the onslaught. And he was a staff sergeant at the time, and he was on the suspect list because he had had an interaction with the wife while the husband was deployed. The deployed spouse comes back and his wife is murdered, and 3 out of their 4 children are also murdered. Years later, and even though I know at the time his defense attorneys said, hey man, don't take a retirement. Like, get to your next enlistment and get out. And he did not. He stayed, he became a master sergeant, and he retired. And then they brought him back on active duty to face charges because what happened in the interim was the escalation of DNA evidence. So they went back, it was like 30 years, however many years had passed. DNA had gotten a lot better, and they went back and tested the rape kit of the wife, and they found Master Sergeant Hennis's DNA was a match for the sperm sample that was found in her rape kit. And they put him back on orders, and they tried him for capital murder. Rob Stell headed up the team. He's a friend and a colleague of mine. Rob and I prosecuted years ago together and have served, in various assignments and knowing each other. But that case was wild. Because everybody if anybody saw the coverage, like he's just walking, they just kept showing him walking across the grass, at Bragg, and he's got his beret and he's in his uniform and he's not really in shape, right? Trying to fit back into a uniform. But yeah,
like every other veteran.
if you did not retire, if you are not deriving retirement benefits, they lose UCMJ over you at that point. Now, yeah, so that I'll leave the answer there. That's probably the simplest, best way to leave it.
It's amazing that, there's, like I said, there's a huge misconception that people are still, under all that stuff,
But you are. If you're a retiree, technically you are.
Right.
Practical matter. Like, there was somebody who posted a TikTok the other day, and I did a response. Like, this guy was asking that question, I guess he was getting into it with the base people, and his question was, can they NJP me? And everyone's like, they can. I'm like, no. Okay, because I want to make a clear distinction between bringing somebody back onto active orders for purposes of a court-martial versus bringing them back on to do an Article 15 Captain's Mask NJP. There is no world in which they have the authority to bring you back just for NJP. And my response to him was, no, they can't. But like, as a practical matter, what's going to end up happening if you're getting into a pissing contest, even if you're, capable of getting onto the base, even if you're a retiree and you're just getting into it with the base commander is just going to bar you.
Yeah.
Which is his authority to do. Like, if you're harassing people at the gate or, whatever, beef was happening with him, like, no, and number one, they cannot NJP you. Can't happen. And number two, they're not going to court martial you over this, but they are going to bar you if you're, keep being a knucklehead. Was kind of my response.
It's thank you for the clarification on that, because like I said, we were having a discussion today at lunch at my work, and I told him, I was like, oh yeah, I'm having this person on, And we're gonna be talking about this misconception. Everybody's like, "No, you're still in." One of the retirees actually, because I work with a lot of everybody in my department except for 2 people are all military at some capacity, right? Some are retirees, some others are not. So, I asked him. He's like, "No, dude, I'm still under the UCMJ." I was like, "Oh, let me figure it out."
If he's a
I don't know.
retiree,
Yeah.
he falls under Article 2, so he's right. But as a practical matter, so I wouldn't call it a misconception, they're not going to do anything to him unless they found out like he committed capital murder or he raped a bunch of people, when he was active. They're not there. The risk is low, we shall say. But the textbook answer is you're still subject to Article 2 if you are deriving retirement benefits only for a court martial, not for administrative purposes. They can't bring you back and then chapter you. They can't bring you back on orders and try to NJP you and try to take your rank. That's not a thing. They only they bring you to the show or they don't.
There you go, buddy. That answers the question for you. So
there you go.
You're still on there. So I'm just here for educational purposes today. So thank you for educating me today. But let's get to something you're also very passionate about. You're also passionate about education yourself because you actually have created a course that has helped people, especially veterans that are trying to upgrade their discharge, right?
Right. Either change their RE code or change the characterization of their discharge to try to get to an honorable separation, to an honorable discharge on their DD 214.
Yeah, because a lot of times, if you got out, okay, so I have some. Obviously, I know everybody knows the dishonorable, and everybody knows the honorable, and then there's also the general, right? And then there's a few others in between there. But what is the difference between the dishonorable and general?
So I'll answer you this way: there are only 2 characterizations of discharge that can come from a court martial as punishment following a court martial. Those are a bad conduct discharge and a dishonorable discharge. Those are going to be governed by a different body who would determine if you even are eligible to try to change those discharges because they came from a court martial. And so you can't go to the discharge review board if you have either a bad conduct discharge or a dishonorable discharge or what we call for an officer, call it a dismissal, which is the officer equivalent of a dishonorable discharge. So that's in like one pocket over there. And those are called punitive separations because they were punishment at a court martial. You have to go to the Board for Correction military records if you even are eligible to try to upgrade those. Then there's the 3 that get grouped together in what are known more as administrative separations. Honorable being the one that everybody wants to get to the finish line with your honorable because that carries with it certain benefits and other connotations. Then the middle of the road administrative separation is known as a general under honorable conditions discharge. That takes away VA benefits, GI Bill, and you become ineligible for education assistance. And also, like if you somehow were able to get a civilian job working for the government, you cannot transfer or translate your time in the military into federal service retirement points. So your time
the
is
buyback, as they say, right? The buyback, they won't buy your time back.
If you get a general, you can't use that. Then there is an other than honorable, which a lot of people confuse with dishonorable. And part of that is because the way some of the legislation is very poorly drafted. It makes you wonder like who's up there dealing with. But other than honorable is the quote worst characterization that you can receive administratively. And those are the people who generally them and the generals discharges are trying to upgrade their characterization of service. Sometimes it's because they want to come back in. Sometimes it's because they want their GI Bill. Sometimes it's because they're trying to get VA benefits, VA medical, and that sort of thing.
So, okay, there's always a case where you have a lot of veterans actually have gotten out right from an active duty status and they go to a reserve status and they actually get activated to go to an active duty Title 10, right? And so there's two existing DD 214s, right? There's still
you don't get a DD 214 from the reserve time. That doesn't exist. You only get a DD-214 from active.
Right. What I'm saying is, if you get deployed and you go to on Title 10 orders,
Sure.
and you get a second DD-214, right? Like I do, I have 2 DD-214s. Okay. This is just me because I'm dumb and I'm asking the questions. I'm a journalist, damn it. I gotta ask these questions. And I'm just asking for a friend. Asking for a friend. If you have 2 of them, does one supersede the other, or are they both equal?
So the most recent legislation that's come out has attempted to say that the last, like the most recent, because that tends to be the one that gives people the OTH or the general, right? Because if you re-upped, you had a prior honorable.
Right.
That they're trying to say that the most recent or the last DD-214 or characterization of your service is the one that is going to impact your benefits. But there are plenty of arguments to make that having a prior honorable will give you the benefits to which you're otherwise entitled. So that's, again, a lawyerly answer, but really weirdly drafted legislation.
No, and it's not a lawyerly answer. It's just literally, it's just, again, there's the confusion, right? Everybody doesn't really understand all that stuff. Like, I
think part of it was to dissuade veterans from applying, right? So what we tell people is if you have a prior honorable, and especially depending on if it was, post 9/11 GI Bill, and you have your honorable, but then you went on to get something that wasn't, you still need to be making your claim for it. They're probably going to tell you no the first time, maybe the second time, maybe the third, but you got to keep at it, because the legislation in at the time that you received your discharge qualifies you. The follow-on legislation attempts to try to take it away from you. But we still tell people, and we still have had some success at getting people their honorables based off, the benefits to which they're entitled based off of that prior honorable discharge that they have.
That's interesting. So I'm glad that I asked that question, because I was always confused about that, right? Because so you have two DD-214s, obviously. One, like I was prior. My active duty was in Navy, and then my other DD-214 was because I ended up going to Afghanistan in 13-14. So obviously there's 2 different quote, still considered a desert storm. There's a storm veteran or Gulf
Operation Enduring Freedom.
Well,
Afghanistan, it was OEF. Yeah.
No, I know that, but there's also like categories as far as that was my qualifier, right? That's what that made a person during freedom. But then there's also like you're also considered like a Desert Storm veteran. I think all my VA paperwork still says consider a Desert Storm era.
It probably says Terra, and it may say Gulf War.
So yeah, Gulf War. Yeah, that's right, Gulf War era. So what I'm getting to is that one of them is actually allows me to be part of certain organizations like the VFW. The other one does not, because you have to have certain, there's a certain qualifiers that make you eligible to become part of the VFW, and the other one does not, right? Because you only had like the GWAT, right? Everybody knows about the GWAT. There's 2 of them. There's a GWAT medal and there's a GWAT expeditionary. Well, the expeditionary one is the one that actually qualifies you for the VFW. The other one does not. The medal does not. Yes, you may have the Global War on Terrorism GWAT medal, but it doesn't qualify you to be on, to be eligible.
Right. That just meant that you were serving at the time.
Right. Exactly. Right. Just same thing with that's the same thing with the national defense. Everybody, for a long time, you'd see these. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. These lieutenants were coming out. They're like, I have one big ribbon right here. It's the national defense. Everybody gets that out of boot camp. It was like they were handing it like candy forever, right? And then you'd see everybody else that especially like the prior service people going back into service. Your left stack was way bigger than the other one, and theirs was like their right stack was a lot bigger because they're the unit. The unit awards were a lot bigger than their personal ones, right? Individual awards, and that to me that was funny. It was hilarious. Like you know, look at people like, oh my gosh, you have that many medals? Like, yeah, I got like 4 rows, dude. It's cool, you know. Like maybe one day you'll grow
When
up to be one of
when I
those.
stood up to address the all general officers in that court martial, I called it the I've been breathing awards. Like that's all I had on my chest. But I was, you know, very, very fortunate to be recognized as a trial advocate who could stand up there and do that. And this general who was super hard of hearing, he was a 2-star. He was the commander of CTAF at the time in Italy. I stood up to voir dire him, right? That's first questions that you're starting to ask. And he starts shouting at me and he's like, little lady, you're going to have to speak up. And he's like, I'm an old tanker. And so I used my like booming voice. Like I was not going to be deterred.
Your outside voice, right?
Like he's got, the stack that's like overflowing. And I've got this, I've been breathing award. It was was very aware of that when I stood up during sentencing. And this got me ridiculed for a long time in my office, and even got me a really cool toy that was gifted to me and a sign on my door. I was in the moment, arguing to these generals, and I said, dismiss him. And then I was like, oh shit, you just told a bunch of generals what to do. And I said, you should. And so then by the time I get back to my office, I've got this big like Yoda on my door, and they gave me this lightsaber. I still have the lightsaber. My kids
dismiss him, you should.
Dismiss him, you should. Like, because I had this awareness of like, I've got this, I've been breathing award, but here I am. And I thought to myself, maybe I'm never going to have this experience again, that a room full of generals are taking notes every time I say something. And that happened again, because I ended up getting to represent a really senior colonel in front of a panel of all general officers in the middle of the pandemic that they flew there to Madigan. We tried the case at Joint Base Lewis McChord, and they acquitted him in an hour and 21 minutes. And I remember during my sentencing argument, or my closing argument, and I said, perhaps someone more than the attorneys here at this table should have reviewed this case better before they flew you all here in the middle of a pandemic. And 3 out of 8 heads were doing a lot of north-south, and I knew I had my acquittal. So
that's cool. That's super cool. All right, so let's get back to this course, though. So this course walks everybody through from the beginning and what the process is to actually upgrade their DD-214, right?
Yeah, it walks everything through the entire application. So a lot of people get stuck. So, and I decided to create this because, frankly, a lot of veterans can't hire somebody like me to pay thousands of dollars to do it one-on-one with them. And I thought, there is a huge population who can't afford to get the help that they so righteously need, right? So I it took me probably 100 hours to put together all of the materials, all the shells, all the checklists, right? Like a lot of people get stuck because they don't even have the documents that they need to try to prove what they need. So the first class talks about what documents you need, how to get them, where to go get them, walks you through electronically, walks you through the mail system. Like it's everything. It's videos, it's me, it's walking you through, but there's handouts, there's slides, there's everything you need. And it takes you through an on-demand 5-part course for how to put the best application possible forward that you can.
And sorry, is there a cost to the application process? Like when you actually try to appeal, well, I don't want to say appeal, but when you actually try to go through the process, is there a cost for like a startup fee?
There's no filing fee to file your application. That it's a DD form, and you need to do a lot more than just the DD form. But yeah, it's not like you have to go to file a petition in court and you have to pay a filing fee, or like when you go to get a divorce, you have to pay a fee to file your paperwork. There's no filing fee to apply. And
how, obviously I have the link here on the screen. So if you're looking for it, just go to the www.patreon.com and /collection, and there's number /1494622. That is where you can find that link for this course. And I encourage everybody to actually go into it, especially if you're actually trying to upgrade your discharge code and your either your discharge
characterization or your RE code, right? The RE code dictates like how was it for misconduct? Was it uncharacterized? And also the number signifies whether or not you can try to re-enlist or go into another service.
And then obviously, especially if you're trying to get benefits, because does that affect your VA benefits too?
Yes,
code?
it can. So I've put out a couple of YouTube screening videos to make sure that you are someone who qualifies to try, and then kind of answers that second question of, okay, even if I'm eligible, do I have a great shot? Like, what are my chances? And so those are available on YouTube, and those are also available on Patreon under my profile. But what I would say is that, and what I tell people in that screening class is, if your sole purpose is to try to get VA benefits, the VA has its own internal system that may serve you for your purposes internally to apply within the VA and get you the benefits that way. It's a lot shorter, and you'll be able to get it perhaps quicker. If the VA turns you down, then you have to go to the discharge review board to try to get it that way. But I always try to tell people, if that's the sole reason, if there's not like an occupation that's you're being prohibited on, there's not an GI Bill, like if there's not another reason, it's solely for VA, ask the VA about their internal process first.
And have you been, when obviously you take cases, right? Especially for things of that nature now. Have you seen a big influx of cases that have to do with I guess I'm thinking of like people saying, "Oh, I was wrongfully terminated, not terminated, but wrongfully accused of this, and I was sent out because of this and that." Have we had a lot of?
Well, there's 1,000 different reasons. What I would say is the trends that we're seeing as far as people who are actually receiving success are people who are able to link the reason that they got out to a post-service or even during service psychiatric or mental health diagnosis. So if you can link it to some type of PTSD, or it was because the military did a really bad job of recognizing what that was, right? So people were drinking, maybe they got a DUI, maybe they were being sassy, they were talking back, they were being disrespectful, they weren't at the place they were supposed to do. But now we understand that some of that was really poor coping, with things that they had dealt with during their service. And so if you're able to successfully link what it was that got you kicked out to linking it to some behavioral health issues, specifically PTSD, we're seeing a huge increase of the likelihood of success at getting your discharge upgrade. The other area that we're seeing like huge numbers on are the COVID vaccine refusals.
Yes.
Those are flooding, and unless there was something else, like if it was that plus something else, we're generally universally seeing those get upgraded.
Now, let me ask you this. And there was actually, like I said, there was a discussion today at lunch. We were talking about that stuff where people actually refused to take the vaccination when all of this was going on, and they were wrongfully terminated, right? It's employment wrongfully terminated, or chaptered out because they refused to conform. And somebody mentioned, it's like, yeah, I think somebody went back and actually ended up you would get all your back pay from the day you left to the day you come back. I don't know if that's true. I don't know. I don't think that would. I don't think the government actually do.
I think it's a question of be careful what you ask for, right? So a lot of the people who had COVID refusals, you can ask. It is a power within the board's discretion to put you back into active service. Now, what's unique about what happens in that situation, or even if like the Army Board of Correctional Military Records and the Naval Board, like if somebody was chaptered out and went through a separation board and something was materially flawed in that, those individuals also can be put back into active orders, and they have a cause of action to receive back pay if they do actually go back in. What's strange to me, you're going to be shocked at the government inefficiency. There is no mechanism for DFAS to actually pay for the back pay. You have to separately file a lawsuit in DC, in federal district court, so that DFAS then the court will, and they do it all the time. I mean, these cases happen systematically. There's like one guy in my law firm who does nothing but file in the Federal District of Washington when the military has not followed its own, procedures. And I do not need a flood of cases where you think that you have defamation. You're not suing the military about defamation. Let me be very, very clear about that. But if there was an issue where, you got chaptered and it was wrong, you have to sue in the Federal District of Washington, and that order from the judge gives DFAS the mechanism to do back pay. That absolutely happens.
Gotcha.
Yep.
All right. So I have a question for you. And we've now gone over the 2 hours that you so graciously gave me. I'm enjoying our conversation. I really am. I would love for you to stick around if you're willing to stick around for another undisclosed amount of time. Not for another 2 hours, but I don't want to end this conversation just yet. I don't know if if you have somewhere to be, or you're like, no, I got research I got to do in some cases, but I'd love for you to stick around and talk with us a little bit more.
I have a little more time. I can be here a little bit
longer. All right, let's do it, because I have to be. I was already fully disclosed earlier today. I have a segment that I call rapid fire questions.
Rapid fire questions brought to you by U.S.A. Construction Services out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It is veteran-owned and operated with over 25 years of experience.
All right, Rapid Fire Questions is brought to you by EGA Construction out of DFW, Fort Worth area. And thank you to Lynn Tuma, who is the past DFW Department of Texas State Commander. He is the owner of that. So it's a proud military-owned, veteran-owned business. So thank you for your support and your sponsorship for this segment. And oddly enough, this is his favorite segment. So I was like, I wonder if the guy who's actually doing the graphics will give you that segment for it to be your segment. So yes, he is sponsoring this segment. So thank you so very much for your continued support. All right, so the way that this works is that I will ask you a question. The first thing that comes to mind, and the quickest that comes to mind, is how you answer this question. So, for example, I will ask you, what is your favorite type of drink?
Water.
There you go. See, that was quick. Boom. Simple, right? So now that's the gist of the game. That's it.
Okay, one under my belt. I'm ready.
That's right. Yeah, you're batting 1,000, so you're good. All right. So as time goes by, I will ask questions that may be a little bit more. I'm not saying that they're more. They're going to put you in a predicament, but they're going to be like, they're going to be more of like, didn't think of that, and it's like, oh shoot, now we have to answer it quicker. So that kind of puts people in this state of mind where like, oh my, a panic. It's literally a panic. You see it in their faces.
Yeah,
it's funny.
we'll see.
All right, here we go. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Well, I'll start easy. I'll be easy on you today. All right. So, who is your favorite historical military leader?
Patton.
All right, I'll allow it. Why?
Don't have a reason. That's just
okay.
In my head.
All right. Well, mine is General MacArthur.
Okay.
General MacArthur to me was, my favorite quote from him. And I said it last week too. My favorite quote by him, it was he was a young cadet at the academy, and he said there was always a song that would play right before we went to bed. It was, it always say, a soldier never dies, he just fades away. That's one of my favorite quotes that he said. So that's cool. But he was also a very stubborn man, I think. But it was cool. It was really like it. All right. Favorite military movie?
Fugleman.
Of course. You already answered that one. That was super easy. All right. Favorite non-military movie?
Probably Shawshank Redemption.
Ooh, good pull. That's one of my favorites too. I love that one. It's actually done in Pennsylvania, I think. No, Ohio. It was in Ohio. That was where it's filmed. I don't remember the name of the actual prison, but it was in Ohio. All right. What is your, when you're kind of down, not down like as in like you're, but you're trying to like wind down. What is your favorite like guilty pleasure when you're watching TV, if you watch TV?
Bachelor in Paradise.
Ah, yes, that's like so mindless sometimes. Like, you just want to
trash. Just debauchery. Name that personality disorder. Watch anxious attachment happen. Like it is absolutely, yeah. It's trash.
Love it. I love it. That's hilarious. Growing up, what was your favorite thing to do while you were growing up?
Probably Saturday morning cartoons.
All right. Follow-up question. Cereal. What kind of cereal?
Oh, Corn Pops.
Really?
I never got sugar cereal at my house. We had, everything was super healthy. So in the summer when I'd get to spend time with my grandma, she would say, okay, let's go to the store, we'll buy sugar cereal. So I would either choose Sugar Pops or I would choose Frosted Flakes.
Wow. Like, honestly, you did mention you had a shelter life. You really had a shelter life. Like, not even like Cinnamon Toast Crunch or anything. Like, Golden Grams were my favorite.
That was my favorite in college. You asked when I was a kid. Cinnamon Toast Crunch, like the cinnamon on top, slurping down the milk. Oh man, that was good stuff.
Yeah, because at that point you were the one buying the groceries. That's why.
That's right.
All right. As an adult, what is your favorite adult drink?
So I really don't drink. But if I had to, like every now and again, I'll have like maybe, tequila, margarita, tequila.
Boom.
But like I like a good sipping tequila. Like it's got to be pretty top.
Okay.
Top end.
Yes. So I always challenge everybody when everybody says tequila, right? So tequila, it's not really to be drank like as a shot. It was actually, if you ever watch, and I encourage everyone to do this because it just makes you, it's culture. And I love actually like watching film and history and, like older movies and stuff like that. So when I was growing up, I watched a lot of golden era Mexican movies, right? Obviously in Spanish and stuff. And every time somebody would actually, ask for a tequila, they would have the double shot glass, but they would call them caballitos, which is just caballitos is a small horse, right?
Okay.
A little pony, basically. But they would always just sip it. They would never shoot it unless they were like really like, now like, oh my gosh, but they will always sip that tequila. And I always tell everybody, it's like, tequila is really not meant to be shot, but here we are. That's just our
If they're drinking the really nasty stuff, that's probably the only way to get it down. But yeah. First time I had sipping tequila was the night we had our dining in at Jag OBC, and my good friend, my buddy Carl Christensen, had a really good sipping tequila, and I may have sipped a little more than I should have. I ended up at the grog for sure, but yeah, it was a good time.
Everybody ends up at the grog at some point in their career. I mean, everybody, at least I did, and it was pretty fun. It was awesome. Okay, so we got that out of the way. We talked about your guilty pleasure. What is your favorite type of food? Like, do you prefer like Italian? Do you prefer Mexican? Do you prefer, I don't know,
sushi?
Have you been to Japan to actually have real sushi?
Oh yeah. Oh, funny story about that. So I was in Japan. I was defending a Marine against some charges, and my co-counsel was a female Marine who spoke fluent Japanese, and she found out that I loved sushi, love sushi. And so she said, we're going to go to this spot that she'd found. It was unbelievable. Best sushi I've ever had in my life. We were ordering like boats, right? Like we were the only Caucasian people in there. Thank goodness she spoke Japanese, and, so we were accepted at, the bill came to $8. It was just ridiculous, like how much food we got and such high quality. And so she starts telling me that that this sushi chef who started this restaurant had been the number one in Tokyo, high pressure, all of that. And he just kind of said, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. And so he, ends up in Okinawa, opening this very tiny kind of hole in the wall place, just unbelievably fantastic food. I think like less than 30 days later, I'm in Vegas. I'm there for a conference, but I'm also prepping because I have a trial at McCord. This is like a 36-day travel fiasco that I'm on in this stint. And I treat myself and I go out to, really nice sushi place and one of the very high end, on the strip casinos. And I'm eating by myself, as I often do while I'm traveling.
Mm-hmm.
And the waiter comes up and he starts up a conversation with me, and I'm complimentary of the sushi. And I said, second best sushi I've ever had. And that kind of sparked his curiosity. And so I started telling him that I had eaten, and I knew the restaurant at the time, and I'd eaten at this place, for this. And he's just shocked, and he runs away. And I'm like, oh, I hope I didn't offend him. Next thing I know, the head sushi chef at this place, this very high, falutin place, marches out with like a team of people. They've got all these dishes, and he's like, "You ate at my brother's restaurant."
What?
Swear to goodness. And so they start like bringing me all of this like top, like, the chef just created these, like, he's just so floored that I've met his brother and that I, called him the second best. I was like, oh God. And so people take out their cameras and they start taking pictures of me thinking that I'm like somebody important or famous, because they're like these waiter after waiter. They just kept bringing me all this like amazing, beautiful food. It was remarkable. So
that's hilarious. What a small world, right? I mean, here you are, two sides of the world, and it's like, okay, I'm in Okinawa, like only Marines go to Okinawa. Next thing you know, you're in Vegas, and you're eating at the dude's brother's place. It's crazy.
It was unbelievable.
That's you have to put that in your memoir. Just saying. I mean, that's a great story.
I think it's a good story. Yeah.
All right. So what is one thing that you have on your bucket list that you have not been able to accomplish yet?
Judge.
Is that in the works?
Nope.
Okay. You don't want it. You're like, nah, I'm good.
It was something that it was my dream since I was 5. It was my dream before I knew I had to be a lawyer to be a judge. I wanted to be a judge. 5 years old, talking to my dad. And I said, I'm going to be a judge. And he says, well, you have to be a lawyer first. I'm like, whatever. No, you don't. And he starts, sort of Socratic method. How do you think you get to be a judge? I'm like, well, you go to judge school. And so that he presents evidence to me and tells, explains to me and proves to me that I actually have to be fine. I'll be a lawyer first. And I always thought that I would become a military judge. When I left active duty, that and being on the faculty in Charlottesville were 2 goals that I had not accomplished. And so when approached by an active duty, very like senior judge, he beckoned me back and asked me, he did, we need you. I saw him in the Charlottesville airport, and he points to me, Colonel Jim Pohl, and he said, you got out. And like out, like you're not even in the reserves and you didn't call me. I said, no, sir, I didn't. He said, we need you. We don't have the depth of knowledge in criminal law in reserves. And I need to be able to appoint somebody who can handle it to high profile Article 32s, preliminary hearings, because we just don't have it. We need you. So I end up, and he says, as soon as you make 05, you have a judge slot waiting for you. Did all the things, made lieutenant colonel, did the school to do it. And Colonel Pohl has, of course, retired. I thought I still had a very strong packet, and I was overlooked. I did not get it. And it was one of the toughest things I've gone through professionally, I would say. Definitely gone through far more challenging things in my personal life, but professionally, it was really hard to kind of mourn the loss of that dream. I found out through back channels that it was done intentionally, and that they were going to tell me if I took down my blog that I would make it the following year. And instead, they got this in my retirement papers.
Yeah, you had to.
I have been blogging, and I've been, an instigator for change for a very long time, and I was never going to allow myself to be silenced. So, although it is an unmet dream, it's not one that I regret.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you have written some policies. Would you ever consider actually writing bills that can change things for veterans?
So I was part of a bill. I was writing legislation to fix the problem of military law enforcement's titling and indexing. So if you have a probable cause determination made against you by military law enforcement for 40 years, you have to live with that and NCIC and federal background checks. It can ruin people's lives. And the people who are making these decisions really aren't qualified to do it. And so I was drafting some legislation. I was part of a group that was endeavoring to do that. The heavy lifting was really on me. And then there were some personality conflicts among some people, and it got just absolutely cast aside. So I still have it. It's still there. I am thankful, though, that in the interim, they have changed some of the policies about it. You can now, just under a justice and equity argument, be able to undo a titling, which is very, very, I'm very thankful for that. So my legislation never made it, but the movement to correct that issue has definitely at least given us a window of possibility.
Well, that's good to know, especially because, I don't consider myself an advocate as much as I guess I consider myself more of of somebody that brings resources, right? That I actually highlight resources rather than actually being an advocate. Yes, I am an advocate of my own, right? Because everybody has to be their own advocate especially when it comes to VA stuff. Everybody has to be their own advocate. But as far as like being an advocate for a lot of people, I don't consider myself that yet because I haven't really gotten involved in certain things. But I can definitely use this platform in order for me to actually highlight some of those things that we want to make sure that we get past, right? And that's, I guess that's my advocacy. So we having, being able to share and bring it to a much bigger audience, I think that's more important to me than anything else, right? So I guess in a way I am an advocate, but I don't.
You're a facilitator of advocacy.
Thank you, a facilitator. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, you're right. But it feels good. I mean, because again, I think everybody, as far as like as a veteran, I think they long to keep serving in some capacity, right? I mean, one of the hashtags that the VFW always uses is still serving, and yeah, in a way, you're still serving in some capacity, right? Being part of a post or being able to actually go down to getting involved in your community, if you also getting involved in your city, not the politics, but the city government.
Sure.
That's one way to keep serving it, because we're a very small population, very small percentage of citizens that actually have served. So and I feel that we're very underrepresented in a lot of areas in our communities. So I think I keep telling people, I was like, hey, you may complain a lot, especially all my friends. I'm like, dude, you complain a lot. Why don't you just get involved? I mean, if you're complaining so much about your government or your city that's all they're doing is just building gas stations, all they're doing is just building, get involved, dude. I mean, no one's gonna say anything else other than you getting involved. So how do you feel about that? How do you feel about
and that really was the impetus for my trial practice book, right? Like, I'm constantly critical of the councils who I go up against, and it's like, well, I can't just sit here and complain about them if I'm not going to try to give them some tools to make it better.
And like you could have said it any better than it, because I'm not a wordsmith like you. I'm sure that just came with a lot of years of actually being able to talk, right? I mean, I would say that I have the face for radio, and unfortunately here I am with a video podcast. I should have never done that. Oh well, it is what it is. But I want to say thank you so much for being so candid about this whole thing is, again, I think one of the biggest things I guess one of the biggest misconceptions that I had, or maybe just misunderstandings that I had, it was just, that that military lawyers were always out to get the enlisted, or be out to get people to get in trouble, getting kicked out, and stuff like that. But it's really not that, right? I mean, obviously everybody, it's just like our legal system that everybody is in the military. I don't remember whether it's you're guilty until proven innocent. Is that still the case?
You're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, but a lot of people have said about the military that it sure feels like you are guilty until you have to prove yourself innocent. That's been a big criticism of our system, because the command has such discretion, unlike any other employer, right? Like, you're cast to the side, your jobs and responsibilities are taken away from you. You're ostracized. You're given no contact orders. In some cases, the entire unit is told to not talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
It can be, and we're already, like, somebody who's already falling under allegations is already at risk for self-harm. And now you're depriving them of what it is that I think most of us were drawn to when we, decided to take an oath and serve our country. And it was to be a part of something and to be part of community. And so when you divest that veteran of his or her community, like, you're wondering why our unaliving population is increasing. Like, it's no longer 22 a day; it's a lot higher.
I was about to ask you that, actually.
It's a lot higher, and nobody will put out the numbers for what it is of people who've come under court martial or UCMJ. Nobody will do it.
Has there been any studies about that?
No one will do it. No one will sanction it. Nobody will do it.
That's unfortunate that they're only counting, the other, but they're not counting. Like I said,
I want to see I want to see the percentage. I want people to understand that these folks are at high risk.
It's more traumatic, I think, right? Because their name is being dragged to the mud, like just like the colonel that was down in Fort Hood. I'm pretty sure. How many times did he think about it? You know what I mean? It shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be that you get ostracized, because it sure does feel like it. I remember, when certain people. Okay, so full disclosure, I was TDY, and I was actually attached to the MAs, which is the military police for the Navy, and I ended up helping out and doing some of the captain's mast. And obviously I saw that both sides, right? The MAs work with the legal department, and legal would work with security, and blah blah blah. So everything was intertwined. It was like one whole department. And the JAG officer was actually the one that was actually pretty much the division officer at that point. But I got to see that side of it, and I got to see the non-judicial punishments that they would issue, and it always seemed that the captain would pretty much give his recommendation, or he would take his recommendation from legal, and says, well, they did this and this and this. Like, there was pretty cutthroat. There was no well, I guess that it wasn't a trial though, but it was just a judiciary thing. So I guess it was different, but I saw
that. Well, at NJP, they aren't supposed to have their mind made up, and 99% of the time they do. So you're allowed to present witnesses. You're allowed to put a packet in front of them. You're allowed to give your own statement at NJP, and it's supposed to be considered. But I don't
remember. Actually, I don't think they ever did.
I've recommended people to turn it down, because they're going to you just have to know they will find you guilty. Like, you have no chance at NJP. And if that's the best course of action for you, then that's the best course of action for you. Do not take this to mean that Jocelyn Stewart is giving legal advice to everyone facing NJP to turn it down. That's not what I'm saying. Wow. I'm saying that you need to understand in your decision tree about what's about to happen to you to know and to be planning for the fact that if you accept NJP at the disposition of NJP, even if you plead not guilty at NJP, you are going to be found guilty. And then what flows from that is an administrative separation. If you're fewer than 6 years, you don't get a right to a board, they can put you out with paperwork, right? So you just have to know and accept and understand that no matter how impressive your evidence, no matter what people hire us to help them put together packets, and we still tell them, you need to understand and accept that in all likelihood, this person is going to find you guilty. Like, you have to brace for that. That is what's coming. What you do from that, because it's a certain level of risk, right? Like, you're not risking conviction, you're not risking jail time, you're not risking a punitive separation, but you need to understand that you're going to get reduced in rank. You're going to get, plan to be maxed out, right? Is sort of the lesson from there. But yeah, NJP is, and I certainly have voir dired panel members where I'm like, have you ever found somebody not guilty at NJP? And they're like, some of them look at you like, what do you mean? Like, is that even an option? And you're like, nope. I talk in my book about voir dire, and that's book 4 of my trial practice series, like the silent answer. Like, watch, like you're trying to hit me with these rapid fire questions. You're trying to see like how quickly I'm responding. But like, that's a good question to ask, because if they give you a face like, what are you talking about? Like, why would I ever do that? You're like, bye-bye. You're going to find a reason to strike them, because it's just that one-sided.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense. And if you've gone through a UCMJ Article 15 and or NJP, which would be non-judicial punishment through the Navy, I'm sorry, you were already guilty just by being charged with that Article 15.
Well, doesn't mean you are guilty. It means you're going to be found guilty.
Yeah,
there's a distinction. Yeah.
So, but actually, in the Army, I mean, you know this well. A good NCO has at least 2 or 3 under their belt. Yeah, at least Article 15.
Not so much anymore. Not in this era. Not in this era.
Exactly.
Seems to be zero defect these days.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we've come to the pretty much the end of the show, I think. I know that Jocelyn has graciously given us an additional 30 minutes of her time, and I know she's busy because she's working yet another big case that involves gummy bears. That's her new case. I'm just kidding. I forgot to tell you about that. Okay, so here I am. It was remember I was telling you I was TDY to security, right? In on the ship. Well, I ended up they say, hey, you need to go out to the Chiefs mess, which is the E79 E8. So the Chiefs have their own mess. They have their own food. It says, hey, the Chiefs, go see the chief down there, and they're actually looking. Somebody opened one of their storerooms and stole a bunch of stuff. You need to go see and investigate what happened. I said, all right. So I go down there to the Chiefs mess, and I was like, hey, I'm looking for a Chief so and so. All right, hold on a minute. So they finally get him, and then it was the Master Chief. It was E9, and he's like, hey, so we got to go to the storeroom where all of our goods are at. So for those of you who don't know, so E1 through E6 will eat in the regular mess deck. E7, E8, and E9 have their own mess decks, and then the officers have their own stuff in the military, in the Navy especially. So the Chiefs will actually have their own mess, which means that they would actually pay additional like money for them to actually have certain luxuries, meaning like they would have like lobster and stuff that didn't really were supposed to have. Like nobody wants to say it, but I'll say it. They normally would have drinks there or whatnot. Anyway, and they would have other stuff. So we finally he takes me over to the storeroom, which is several decks below and whatnot. And I was like, all right, Master Chief, so what happened? He said, well, I came down here to get some supplies, and next thing I know, the door was already cracked open. When you can definitely see that somebody actually pried it open with some type of thing. So it was open, and then they had boxes. It was just a little storeroom, and then it was there was a bunch of boxes there, and they knew where they were getting themselves into because it was crazy. So there was only just unmarked boxes, and then they opened them and they knew exactly where to get it. Well, I said, well, I'm actually, did you guys take an inventory, or did you have an inventory of what was here? He said, yeah, this is what we had. Have you taken the inventory after all this stuff was done? He said, yes. He's okay, so what are the only things that you're missing? Are you missing anything of value? And if so, what is the value? He said, well, we're missing about 6 bags of gummy bears. I was like, Master Chief, was that the only thing that was taken? He said, Yeah, I think there was also some Sour Patch Kids. I was like, okay. I'm like,
Someone has
I'm
listened
trying.
to.
I'm trying not to laugh, because I'm like, you guys literally called about that. It's anybody could have taken it. It was probably one of your own guys that actually did it. You know what I mean? Like he was just mad that he had to pay for all this stuff. But I'm laughing because when I went back to, I went back into dispatch, and the watch commander was there. He's like, "Hey, so what happened?" I was like, "Hey, so the Master Chief wants to talk to you because." He said, I kind of disrespected him. He said, "What do you mean disrespect?" I was like, I kind of started laughing when he told me there was gummy bears that were missing. He's like, he's like, "Are you shitting me?" I was like, "No." That's exactly what happened. He's like, "Oh my God." He's probably going to call. He's all, sure enough, that Master Chief ended up calling the security Master Chief because, like, it's like, he's all, "Yeah, your patrolman disrespected me." I was like, and then the Master Chief was like, the security Master Chief was like, "Hey, Petty Officer Stein, so what happened? What did you do?" I was like, "Look, Master Chief." I was like, as soon as he told me that what the items of value were missing were gummy bears, I kind of started laughing a little bit. He's like, "Well, what do you mean?" Like, that's what they called him. I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I get that they have to call him because they have to make a report, make sure that nothing else was, da da da." And he's like, "Oh my God." He's all, "Don't worry about it. I'll talk to him." He's like, "There was no disrespect." I was like, "That is pretty funny." Like, I know. I was like, I could not stop laughing. It was just one of the dumb things. And I always say that was the case that broke my career.
There you go. Case of the missing gummy bears.
That's right.
You never solved it. It's left undone.
And you're right. I never
the most.
Exactly. I never solved it, and there was no non-judicial punishment given during that time. But it was just funny. I was just like, I just could not believe that really happened. And this is one of those things that you actually, kind of, now that I look back on it, it's like, oh my God, that's just funny. Some of the things that we actually endure and go through, and you never really think about those things. But all right, so several last questions. Where can we find you on your handles? I know you have, obviously you have your course that it's actually there on the screen if you're looking for it. It is
that's the Patreon. That's where I host my podcast. It's behind a paywall, and this class is also behind a paywall, but it's the price of talking to me for an hour. And you guys just got me for almost 3. So it's a bargain. And then you can also find me on TikTok and on Instagram as the Messy Military Lawyer. You can follow my blog on my website, ucmj-defender.com. It's under resources. Always putting up 3 posts a week over there. So lots of places to find me.
Yes. And if nothing else, go into Google and just put Messy Military Lawyer.
It's a searchable term now. It's very strange.
Actually, you know what came up when I actually searched it? I was like, let's see what happens. AI actually came up with it. Jocelyn Stewart. It says at TikTok. I was like, what? I was like, no way. I was like, when AI actually knows who you are, I mean, I think you hit the jackpot there.
I've arrived.
Now you have arrived. That's right, or derived. I don't know, because it's
maybe both.
It's kind of scary. It's kind of scary how much this other stuff, has gone through. So, it just happened. But all right. So if you're looking for her book, where can we find your book?
So you can buy it on my website if you want it sold by me, or you can find it on Amazon. It has been my honor collection of my top 12 case stories.
Yes, I actually downloaded it because I have Kindle, and it's Kindle Unlimited. So actually, it's if you're Amazon Prime, you actually get it. So I got it. I'm looking forward. I wish it was on audio and I could listen on the way home, but
that I do have the audio recordings. It just haven't been produced yet. The audiobook was supposed to be released already. I think a lot more of my TikTok people would rather listen. They did demand that it was my voice and that I couldn't hire a voiceover. So
yeah, well,
I'll get to it
eventually, right? It's it's on your bucket list. That's exactly.
List. I have a big long list of things I need to do. Not necessarily.
I'm sure. Oh, well, that was one of the other things that I forgot to ask you on my rapid fire questions. What is one thing that you regret not doing?
I don't have any.
What about one of the biggest things that you regret doing?
I don't have regrets, man. I don't have the tattoo that says no regrets, but no,
Yeah.
I think it's really important that we are all a product of every choice that we've made and everything that we've gone through. And I wouldn't be where I am right now, but for all the decisions that I've made that got me here.
So what's next for Jocelyn Stewart?
I want to keep teaching. I want to keep, actually I have a really, really big civil suit that I'm a part of, that I'm heading up. We're supposed to go to trial next April. That keeps a big part of my attention these days on behalf of a veteran who was very, very wronged by some very major corporations. And I look forward to holding them accountable.
Let me ask you one last question about this. You've heard about the ICE raids that have been going on in California, right? Or actually around the states, particularly the one in California, where there was a group of agents that actually went into a farm, and there was I believe, I want to say it was a pot farm. Anyway, the security guard was actually a veteran that was actually involved in it. There's a couple stories going on. Obviously, you have the story that says that why the agents were there. Well, the agents were there because they were actually going to serve and actually get 10 or 8 or 10 children that were there, unaccompanied minors that were there being worked on. More than likely, there's speculation that it could have been for human trafficking. So they were there to actually stop them and actually get them out of that situation. But they blamed the veteran security guard that he knew about this. And so
I don't know what you mean by blame. Has he been charged, Caesar? Like, what are we talking about here?
No, he was I think he was arrested, but then released after that. But he was arrested because he was part of that whole thing. They're blaming him, and again, this is just what hearsay that I'm hearing. But they blamed him for saying that he knew about the children being there unaccompanied or anything like that. His argument was that he had no idea that the kids were there unaccompanied. But there's bigger issues about, the kids were there, but the person that actually owns the farm was actually also a well-known pedophile. And so again, the human trafficking angle comes back into play. So that's what they were kind of saying, like, oh, he knew about, where he worked and he knew about this and that. A lot of times, people just take jobs for whatever reason because they need the money. They don't really know or don't ask questions. I know I did a lot of times when I worked security. They're like, all right, here you're gonna man your post, and that's all you get to do. Let people in or out. They're on this list.
I don't know about that particular case, but what I can provide maybe to your listeners and watchers is in my mind, one of the scariest aspects of criminal liability is what we call vicarious liability. Mm-hmm. It is the ways in which we can become legally responsible for the actions of other people. There are 2 types of vicarious liability. One is like co-conspirator, which requires a meeting of the minds, right? And we can all kind of get behind that from a policy perspective. If you and I get together and we decide we want to go rob a bank, and we're like, but to bring about that, I go get the masks, you go get the gun. And we agree, though, that we don't want you to shoot anybody because, we want to get in and get out and get clean. But you go in there, I think you've got blanks, but the meeting of the minds is to rob the bank. I'm still responsible if you fire your gun because we came to an agreement about a specific illegal end. We can all kind of get behind that. The one to me that's far more scarier as a policy is the other side of vicarious liability, which is called aider and abetter law. You hear, so there's a really long list of verbs. If you aid, assist, encourage, and a bunch of other things that assist in a crime, whether or not you had a meeting of the minds about what was going to be the object of that conspiracy or the object of that goal, you may not even have the goal. But if your actions assisted, encouraged, aided, right? Like if he's standing guard, it doesn't matter if he knows or does not know that he's standing guard to bring about pedophilia or human trafficking or whatever other criminal actions may have been taking place. The federal government has the ability to really pressure him into probably testifying, maybe, but they can go after him under a theory of aider and abettor law, that he assisted and he didn't even have to know, right?
Gotcha.
So that's not one of the elements. So I don't know that specific situation, but just kind of that's what it came to mind for me.
Right. Well, good, because again, I'm not versed in all that. I'm just kind of telling you what I know about it. But I'm glad that you cleared it up, because you don't have to. I'm glad you brought up the aider and abetter, because a lot of people don't know. Like, oh shoot, well, he was an accessory for this, and all of a sudden you became an accessory because you didn't really know, but yet you drove the car.
Because there's an instruction that you get that you can't have sort of like this willful negligence about it. Like you can't turn your blind eye when you probably should have suspected something wasn't going on. You can still become responsible.
Well, there you go. See, now you learned something. So I hope everybody out there learned something about aiding and abetting. So
be careful out there.
That's right. The best thing you can do is tell your friends, go fuck off. That's pretty much. You know what I mean? Like, no, I'm not helping you today, dude. There's too much liability. I don't know what you're doing. Sorry, not sorry. Bye. Just look out for yourself. All right. Well, we have come to the end of the show. Jocelyn, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. I am so glad that I was able to have you on as a guest, and you are a friend of the shows. Anytime you want to come back to the show, please let me know. I would love to do another series or another interview based on the Vanessa Guillen story, because I think that's an interest to me, and I definitely want to have I want to do a little more research on that, because you obviously have the inside track on it. So I want to see what like. I would say, hey, well, they brought this up. What happened with this? That type of thing. I kind of dissecting the case, because I just find it interesting. Little known fact about
Thank you so
Caesar.
much for having me, Caesar. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Well, no, I'm glad you did. Little known fact about Caesar is I have a criminal justice degree from San Diego State University, but I don't use it anymore.
Enough to be dangerous. Awesome.
Yeah, enough to know about modus operandi and and what is it, the Miranda rights. That's all about it now. But all right, so Jocelyn will be, when is your show? What day do you have your show? And plug it in, please. This is your opportunity to plug it in.
Yeah, I drop a new episode every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time. A new episode drops. And then if I have tiers of my podcast, so if you don't catch my lives on TikTok, my next tier up from the basic that gets all the regular shows, you get all of my lives on demand. And if you want to become a part of Jossie's Posse, which is the top tier, you get access to asking me questions once a month. So not your own personal legal questions.
No,
but
never.
Education purposes.
Asking for a friend. Remember,
that's
the keyword, asking for a friend. I'm going to divulge some information about Jocelyn. She does have several books, so go buy them. There you go. That's my information.
Thank you.
Of course, anytime. And then, like I said, you are a friend of the shows. Anytime you want to come back, you are more than welcome to come back to the Voice of the People, USA Radio and Television Network. And you will also be able to have some time here with us on the Battle Rhythm podcast. But also, I am going to turn you over to a couple of other shows that we have on our network. One, Politishock, and also the other one would be on Freedom Estate, who the person that actually does it. Her name is Danielle Walker. She does a phenomenal job with her podcast, and she is the number 2 podcast in the state of Louisiana, and she is very, very well involved in all that stuff. So I sent her the link, and I was like, hey, you need to watch this. She's a great guest, and you might want to have her on your show. She said, okay, I'll check it out. And she said, you're right, she is a great guest, and so she's probably going to give you a call anyway.
Awesome. I'm a Louisiana native. Very few people.
Are you really?
Yeah, born and raised.
Did not know that. Baton Rouge,
Lafayette, and then I went to Natchitoches for undergrad and LSU, go Tigers, for law school.
Oh, Go, GEAUX. Go Tigers.
That's right.
Okay, I'll let that one go. Just let it go, Caesar. Let it go. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being part of our show tonight. I am so thankful that you were able to stay with us on this Tuesday evening. And I hope that this show has brought you some type of educational purposes. And also, again, if you are trying to get your DD214 and your code upgraded or upgraded that, please go check out the link, www.patreon.com/collection/1494622, or you can actually go into the Messy Military Lawyer or at Messy Military Lawyer on TikTok and on Facebook and Instagram, and also just go to the UCMJDefender.com. That is her website. So just go to the UCMJ-Defender.com, and she will be able to answer any questions we have any of those and get a consult for you to actually, if you're trying to get your stuff upgraded and everything. So there's also that service is great to have, because I know for damn well that I am A1 lazy, and B, I don't know what the hell is going on with all that stuff that, all the legal mumbo jumbo. I don't know any of that. So I would take the easy road by actually hiring her to actually do the dirty work, because I don't know anything about how to navigate these roads. So, and obviously she has a lot of experience doing all this stuff, and I'm just glad that there's people out there that are actually still trying to help out in that sense. And so, yes, go check it out, UCMJ-Defender.com, if you're trying to upgrade your DD214. So, Jocelyn, any final words?
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Same here. And again, you are listening to the Battle Rhythm Podcast. And Jocelyn, stick around for just a second. After we get off the air, I would like to talk to you about another matter. So, this is it, my friends. Thank you so much. We will see you again next. Actually, you know what? Nope. Next week, I am not going to be here. I will be on vacation in the great state of Nevada. I will be in Las Vegas, and I will be changing my name to Mr. Papabon. If anybody watched the Vegas Vacation, Mr. Jojo Papabon, I think that's his name with Rusty. Anyways, that's a story for a different time. But thanks again for listening to the Battle Rhythm Podcast here on Voice of the People Radio Television Network, and also BC Digital and Patriot Radio. So I will see you guys next in 2 weeks when I get back to the show. So thanks so much, everyone, for being here, and I will see you very, very soon. Thank you for watching. As we wrap up today's show, we want to extend our heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in. Your support and engagement means the world to us, and we hope you found today's content insightful and entertaining. This episode, along with all previous shows, is available on all major media platforms. Whether you prefer to listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or watch YouTube, we got you covered. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review to help us reach more listeners just like you. We'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Connect with us on social media, where you can join us in our conversation and stay updated on the latest news and episodes. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thank you once again for being part of the Voice of the People, U.S.A. Radio, and TV Network. We look forward to bringing you more exciting content in our upcoming episodes. Until next time, take care.